Good morning, everyone. A nice deep breath after the Pacers eliminated the Cavs 2 nights ago. Watch the Celtics do their thing against the Knicks without Jason Tatum, the schedule release in the NFL. Along with Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, I'm Jeff Rickard. Kylan Talley, or as I like to say, my all-time favorite, Kylan Talley, in for Mark Dykton this morning here. Should be running the ones and twos. Good morning, everyone. And KB, any particular deep thoughts on a schedule release that the NFL makes a big deal of every year? And I guess we kind of do too. But now we know dates, times, places, right?
Yeah, home primetime Monday night game. It is late in the year. It will be week 16. We'll see if that holds. Again, Monday night games can be flexed in today's NFL. But yes, that's probably the thing that caught my eye the most, just because I know how much fans have talked about home primetime games and the lack thereof. I think if you take out the 2022 season, it's the first home Monday night game since 2015, which is kind of wild. So yes, Colts 49ers week 16. Again, we will see if the flex stands up there when you get to the third to last game of the season. But yeah, I would say a couple other takeaways that we can certainly hit on throughout.
One of those takeaways being the bye fairly evenly situated in the middle of the season this year, James Boyd.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, I never really have a say-so on those things, so you kind of just get in where you fit in. But the bye will be after the trip to Berlin, which makes a lot of sense considering the travel and just how unique the international game can be for the schedule.
And you can, Scotty has got to be, I went back to his office this morning. I said, man, you've got to be kind of in heaven. You've had an itch that's been scratched. Now you know all the schedules for everybody, including the Pacers moving forward, which we'll talk about in a minute. The Colts, all the college football. And Scotty's like, not really, because the powers that be are just going to move things around anyway. And he's not wrong. As a matter of fact, KB, you just talked about the ability to flex later on in the season. And, of course, college football, we never know from about 10, 12 days out when kick times are going to be anymore.
Yeah, a couple other big things that stood out to me. All the road trips, the long road trips, are isolated. The Colts definitely wanted to have their West Coast, some of their West Coast action back-to-back. Week 4, Week 7, Week 10 to Berlin, and then Week 15, I want to say, Seattle. So all of those trips isolated. None of them are back-to-back. At the Rams in Week 4, back to L.A. to take on the Chargers, then, of course, the Berlin game, and then out to Seattle there in December. Certainly a weather game if you look at that. Mid-December taking on the Seahawks. And then probably I'd say two things are probably the biggest. One, right out of the gate, Dolphins, Broncos in your own building. I mean, if you look at the AFC standings, those are two teams you would think will probably kind of be in that wild card mix. They were last year with you. Obviously, Denver, that Week 15 game totally changed the rest of the season for you. So those are huge games right out of the gate to start your season, and you get them both in your own building. And then last year, when the schedule was released, we quickly found out you won't see the Houston Texans until after Halloween. This year, you won't see them until after Thanksgiving. So you were done with them before November hit last year. Played them in the opener, played them again like Week 7, Week 8. This year, you won't face the Houston Texans until Week 13, which is a definite major twist. You actually have 4 divisional games in the final 6. So those are a couple items that stood out to me.
And those 4 divisional games in the final 6, too, crammed in between those, James Boyd. Another road trip, fairly long, at Seattle, and then a Monday night game against San Francisco here. That's not an easy final 6 weeks there.
Not at all. I honestly think this will be your season. You know, as Kevin pointed out, years past, you've had kind of front-loaded division schedule. At least at this point in the season, you will kind of know the lay of the land, what you need to do, potentially to get into the playoffs. So I think, at minimum, because I had talked about this in an article yesterday for The Athletic, you probably at least need to split those games against, the Jaguars and the Texans. You can't go, 1-3 like you did last year against those teams. And then you want to pick up at least one against, one of the other 2 non-division opponents. So obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because it's way far in advance. But at the same time, I mean, we know what it takes at this point, and this is a chance for you to end your, 4-year playoff drought at this point. And honestly, whenever I do this, because The Athletic, twists my arm and forces me to do a schedule release story, which I just love to do. But I'm joking. I have a great life, great job. But one of the things they always ask is, what's a must-win game? And I always put, at Jacksonville, because if you're a serious team, you'll beat them finally in Duval County. They're coming off a terrible season. Yes, they should be healthier, but Yeah, they got to figure that out.
You made the joke that everybody else makes. You were kind of hoping for at Jacksonville in week 1, so you can get everything out of the way all at once. The initial loss in week 1 and the loss to Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what every Colts fan tells me. I mean, I don't care who they play, where they play, whether they win or lose, but at the same time, I mean, trying to kill two birds with one stone, that's one of them. But jokes aside, if you want to make the playoffs, if you want the season to feel different, do something different. Win your season opener. Win on the road in Jacksonville. You haven't done that, and some of the stats are just crazy. Like, they haven't, I believe, like, won in Jacksonville since, like, Anthony Richardson was a teenager, or like, and not actually, I think he was like 12 or something like that. And, like, they haven't, like, won a road game in Jacksonville. They haven't won a home opener or whatever it was since, like, Daniel Jones was in high school. So, again, these are your quarterbacks now. It's been a little while. I mean, the last time they won a road game in Jacksonville, it was Andrew Luck's 3rd season, and he went for like 370 and 4 touchdowns. He's now 6 years into retirement, and he's the general manager of Stanford football. Get it together.
All right. We'll be talking about that all morning long. Of course, this also means, because the Celtics extend their series with the Knicks last night, KB, that we now know what the Eastern Conference Final schedule is going to look like for the Indiana Pacers. They will start on Wednesday at either New York or Boston. It'll be an 8 p.m. start, and it looks like for right now all tips are 8 p.m. for this entire series.
Which is key for, Pacers and Racers a week from Sunday. So, again, green flag for the 109th running is 12:45. Knock on all of the wood around you. Hopefully nothing from a Mother Nature standpoint. You're probably looking at the end of the race a little after 3 o'clock, something around there. So, what's that, 4+ hours until Game 3. So, whether you need to rest the liver or just rest other parts of your body, if you're trying to pull off that double, you should be able to make that work. And again, something to note about this Knicks-Celtics series, Game 6 will now be tomorrow night in New York, up 3-2. Game 7, if necessary, wouldn't be till Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Game 1, you just said, Jeff, is Wednesday. So right now, if you're a Pacer fan, you are cheering like none other for the Boston Celtics to take this to a Game 7, because it wouldn't just be Sunday. It's not the every other day cadence here. That Game 7 wouldn't be until Monday. So no matter who wins Game 7 on Monday, it's a less than a 48-hour turnaround to Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So, boy, it's things continue to align quite well. But yeah, last night Boston, very impressive. Their bench guys, I thought Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett, super key for them as well. Jaylen Brown and Derek White, outstanding. Big second half there. So they advance, and the T-Wolves punch their ticket out west. Unfortunately, that Steph Curry injury certainly shifted that series. So Minnesota takes care of business in a pretty emphatic fashion.
Yeah, and we'll give you all the extreme details on that coming up in the check down in a moment here. Also, knowing that you're going to have Pacers and Racers on race day for the Indy 500, remember, James Boyd, tell all your friends, pace themselves. You know what? You're going to be out in the sun all day long. You got a game later on that night. Pace yourself, if you know what I'm talking about right there. Lots of water in addition to everything else.
I'm very curious to see just the atmosphere at IMS that day, mainly because I just haven't experienced it myself. But yes, certainly pace yourself, and make sure you're not ending your day or spending part of your day somewhere where you probably shouldn't because you didn't behave yourself. So, be smart about it.
All right. We also have the PGA starting later on today in Charlotte. We'll tell you more about that in a second. But while we're talking about golf, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, we'll be hosting the Fan Invitational Golf Outing presented by Franciscan Health. That'll be Thursday, August 7th. Get a tee time of 10 a.m. That's when we're all going to go off shotgun start over at Legends Golf Club. You've played there a couple times, many times. How many? You've been there probably more than half a dozen times, haven't you, Kevin?
I've been there lots in my life.
Man, that's a great course. Great course. I think you and I played there together once.
We
didn't
did.
Yeah,
certainly.
Anyway, we'll be there. James Boyd, you can be there. When was the last time you swung a golf club?
I swung it badly at Top Golf? What's the other name for it out here?
Back nine.
Back nine, yeah. And I didn't hit it very far at all.
Did you break any car windows in the parking lot or anything?
No, the ball didn't even go that far to break anything.
Hit those horses to the right.
Yeah,
IMPD horse stable.
Exactly, but I mean, I'll probably have camp that day, so I will have to see how the schedule shakes out.
Yeah, Jake and JMV are all still going to be there too. It's for a great cause, though. Franciscan Foundation, making a meaningful impact while enjoying a fantastic day on the course, is what we're going to be doing. Whether you're you're like Kevin and you've been doing it your entire life. Me, I've done it my entire life, but I haven't played all that much the last couple of years. You just like being outdoors. You just want to hang with all of us. That might be the most fun of all, just to hang out with you guys. Thursday, August 7th, 10 a.m., Legends Golf Club. Get your clubs ready. Join us for a memorable event. Go to 1075thefan.com now. Starting to get some tee times filling up now, so now's the chance to do it. Don't miss your chance to make a difference with every swing. All right, we got the check down coming up. We'll tell you more about the Eastern Conference Finals and what we know about the Colts schedule. Dead ahead on a busy morning this morning here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning. Hope your Thursday is starting off well. Thanks for joining us, along with Kevin Bowen, James Boyd. I'm Jeff Rickard. Kylan Talley in for Mark Dykton today. The schedules are out now that we know that the Boston Celtics have extended their series with the New York Knicks. The Pacers will start the Eastern Conference Finals on next Wednesday night at 8 p.m., either against New York or Boston. It'll be on the road either way, but we also know now, KB, we will have Pacers and Racers. We kind of knew that before, but we now know that tip time won't be till 8 p.m. for the Pacers that day.
8 p.m. for the entire series, TNT. So that means Reggie Miller for the entire series. I know that probably makes people very happy. But yes, for our home games in the Eastern Conference Finals in this city, as Jeff said, Pacers and Racers, the 25th. You'll also get one the 27th. That would be a Tuesday, game 4, 8 o'clock. If necessary, game 6 would be Saturday, May 31st. Can you imagine?
We'll close out in 5, Kevin.
Trying to clinch on your home floor.
Man, Jeff be saying we like he going out there to guard somebody.
In game 6 there.
Yeah, I'm about to say
I got some marbles in my pocket, my man. I got some marbles in my pocket.
Yeah, be walking the other team walking to the finals.
That's right.
We could probably add Jeff to the injury list of Pacers opponents if that was the case.
I just pulled a hammy just saying that right now. What are you talking about? Anyway, in the NBA last night, the Boston Celtics did come up big. They got the three-point shot falling. They had 22 of those bad boys last night. They got 7 blocked shots off the bench from Luke Cornett, James Boyd. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team still. I mean, when you lose an All-NBA player, obviously it's a devastating blow to your team. And I shouldn't even say All-NBA because Tatum is one of the best players in the world, like a 2-time gold medalist, NBA champ, all of the above. But they also have Jaylen Brown, who was last year's Finals MVP, so he can kind of take the lead role while the other guys step up. And they are a very deep team, as you saw last night. So, I didn't necessarily expect them to get closed out on their home floor. Now, the Knicks, I do think, have to handle business in Game 6 because if it goes back to a Game 7, anything could happen.
Who would you rather play, Celtics or Knicks?
If I'm the Pacers, I was thinking for a second if I was Jeff and I was on the team. But I would go – I'll probably go Knicks because they don't have the same amount of depth. I actually think the Boston might be able to put up a better chance. Maybe that's just me being the prisoner of the moment from last night, but they're a deep team. They're similar to the Pacers. They move the ball. They defend. They shoot it pretty well when they're hot. So, I guess it's every team, right, when they're hot. But they do shoot the ball pretty well throughout the season, the regular season. The postseason has been kind of questionable, but I would probably go with the Knicks. I think Boston would be a better matchup just for the Boston Celtics and the Pacers.
Who you like, KB?
I would probably go with the Knicks, actually. The Celtics 3-point barrage still worries me. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
They can really get hot. And again, I think the Knicks' biggest question mark, biggest weakness maybe is just the lack of ball handlers and the lack of depth. And I think the Pacers could exploit that. And also, the Celtics will have probably a little bit of a house money feel to it without Tatum. I think the Knicks will feel a little bit more pressure, like home court to get to the finals for the first time in how long? I think you'd want that piano on their back.
127-102, the final score in that one. Derek White led the way for the C's, 34 points. Jaylen Brown had 26 points, 12 rebounds. Peyton Pritchard, 17. Everybody was playing well for the Celtics last night. And the Timberwolves advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the second year in a row. They beat the Golden State Warriors 121-110. They closed the series out in 5 games. Again, JB, Julius Randle, 29 points last night. Anthony Edwards had 22 points, and Rudy Gobert had 17. But Julius Randle is announcing his presence in this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this postseason, the narrative on Julius Randle was that he couldn't play in the playoffs. And statistically speaking, and if you use just the eye test, I would agree with that. He had been a bad playoff player for a player of his caliber, but he has certainly turned a corner. I know Steve Kerr said after the game he made a leap and they couldn't really defend him. Then obviously losing Steph Curry in the first game of that series basically spelled the end for the Warriors. I never expected them to get out of that series without him, and that was certainly the case.
Just wonder what's ahead for the Warriors now as they tick off another year, another season gone by. They had injuries to Steph Curry with the hamstring again. Someone said earlier this morning when I was listening to radio, Kevin Durant's not walking through that door again anytime soon.
No, and they were able to get one more without him in 2022, but that was, a couple years ago at this point. And I think at this stage of their careers, you have to kind of ask how long can you sustain a certain level of greatness. I think Steph Curry is still an all-world talent, but, Draymond Green is not the player he used to be. Still a great defender, but is a liability on offense, quite frankly. And then Klay Thompson isn't there anymore either. So, Jimmy Butler, he's aging. And as much as we talked about playoff Jimmy, we didn't see him, when Steph went down. And so you just wonder how much he has left in the tank to really carry a team.
All right, the Denver Nuggets fighting for their playoff lives tonight. They trail the Oklahoma City Thunder 3-2. They'll be playing at home a late 8:30 start. Do the Nuggets have anything left in the tank to keep this series going?
I would think so. Yeah, I would say this has probably been the most competitive series of all of them, just based off the back and forth. Game 5 was outstanding for those that stayed up the other night after the Pacers clinched there. So really looking forward to this matchup tonight here, and we'll see if the Thunder can close it out on the road.
My concern for the Nuggets is they just don't have a bench, and they've been playing a lot of minutes with a lot of guys, and it starts to catch up with you as the season goes along. But we will wait and see. A lot of baseball last night. The St. Louis Cardinals finally had their winning streak snapped. They they lost to the Phillies in the first game of doubleheader, but came back and started a new streak. Won 14-7 the final there. The Marlins beat the Cubs 3-1, and thank goodness Mark Dykton is not here today because the White Sox have their first winning streak of any kind this season. They've won their second in a row over the Reds 4-2 last night.
I think, honestly, Mark has as many vacation days as the Reds have losses.
Dang.
Yeah.
The man ain't even here to defend himself.
And he won't be here to defend himself tomorrow
You're right,
either.
He won't. And I can't say that I'm
Just
team Mark on this one.
makes me so happy how pathetic.
See, Kylan, you're getting it right there.
How pathetic the Reds are that their losses can match up with the Mark Dykton PTO days. If we can make that happen through September, that'd be great.
Kylan, you just do a good job today and tomorrow. Who knows? You could be. We might see you for half the rest of the year here. Who knows?
Hey, if that means that for Mark, well, you know what? We'll take it.
All right.
Let him win it.
The Indians won last night against the Louisville Bats over at Victory Field. 9-8 was the final score there. They will play this morning at 11:05. You want to sneak away from work early. Also, the Reds play a matinee game today, 12:40. Against the Chicago White Sox again. That's what's happening in the world of sports. And the PGA just teeing off right now. Kevin, give me 3 guys to keep an eye on this week.
Big hitters at Quail Hollow. I was texting with Will Haskett yesterday. He's down there. You've heard him on our airways before. It is a wet golf course. It is a bomber's paradise down there. So pick the long hitters. Rory, Bryson, he threw out those 2. Could we get a little duel again here coming up on Sunday? Rory's got rich history there. Get cars at the track. Hopefully, fingers crossed, weather permitting. Over at 16th of Georgetown today, Tony Kanaan with that refresher at 10 a.m. And then it should be an all-skate coming up here at noon with all 34 cars. Remember, we will bump 1 on Sunday and set the top 12, I should say, those first 4 rows here coming up on Sunday. It is going to be steamy, though, the next couple of days. It's going to feel summer-like out there at IMS, so it'll be interesting to see if that impacts anything. So far, 2 days in, no incidents over there at IMS.
All right. We're looking forward to talking about that from now until race day. And, of course, qualifying coming up this weekend. A lot of activity out at the track, and we'll keep you up to date near the end of the hour, starting at almost 10 o'clock, about 9:58 this morning, and then every hour from there for the rest of the day, updates from the track. Brendan King is going to be out there for us all month long as we cruise through the month of May. All right, we're off and running here on a Thursday edition of the Fan Morning Show with KBJB Jeff, Kylan Talley, and to run things and make sure that we all mind our P's and Q's today. So we'll tell you all about that next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We are running. The Pacers are running, but they are resting before they get ready to run again. And they have now confirmed the NBA after the Celtics win last night that the Eastern Conference Finals will start for the Pacers on the road Wednesday night. All tip times for every game in the series starts at 8 p.m. Wednesday will be game 1. Friday will be game 2. Both of those on the road. And game 3, Pacers and Racers, baby, on race day, but not till 8 p.m. So that bodes well for a great day of sports here in the Circle City.
Yeah, it'd be my first time experiencing the Pacers and Racers phenomenon. So I'm excited about it. People keep telling me to, take an energy drink or make sure you get a good night's sleep. And I don't think they realize, I'm not getting to no track at the crack of freaking dawn anyways. So, yeah, I'll just figure out somebody can literally just drop me off and I will walk, the last mile to get there. I have no idea.
Maybe 2 miles, Kevin? What do you think?
I have no desire to get up and have a police escort and
stop
do
at
all this extra
Longs,
stuff.
get a donut on the way.
I'm so serious. I would much rather
You know
do
what I
that
found
than
out?
get there way, way, way in advance.
I was just, when I went to this is a tradition that I have in my family every year when I go to pick up my credentials, which I did beginning of the week last week. I go to Long's Donuts and I get donuts for the boys and everything. They're not going to be open on race morning. They said it's too hard for people to get in and out of there, and it just becomes a huge cluster for them.
I actually respect that because I went on a random, Saturday, maybe at
I've been 12 deep in line on a Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went on a
6 a.m.
Saturday at 10 a.m. or something, and I was like, I should get up earlier for this. It was actually my first time going, and the line was almost out the door. So, good product sells itself, I suppose, and I can't blame them. They do a great job, and I certainly enjoy the fact that it's cash too. I think my dad, I told him I was like, I had to pay cash for this. He's like, that's how you know it's good.
Yeah.
Now,
So
I
it's
am
fun.
all in on the announcement yesterday. I know a lot of people are not all in on the announcement. You brought this up, James. Game 3, of course, will fall on race day. The one thing that is unique about the Indy 500, and feel free, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say it's one of the rare sporting events where you don't hear boos.
Yeah, ever.
I mean,
I
think
don't
about
remember ever. Yeah.
Maybe you're booing the weather. Maybe you're booing the rain last year, but you aren't really booing anybody. Like driver intros, I don't feel like you're necessarily having this massive amount of venom towards drivers. During the race itself, I don't know, maybe you're did people boo the red flag a couple years ago? I think people actually cheered the red flag because then it's set up for another crazy finish here. But the announcement yesterday means that we will get a practice of booing. 300,000 can band together, can practice their booing during, I guess, just before the green flag, and that will get them ready for Game 3 later that night, whether they need to boo Jalen Brunson, whether they need to boo Jaylen Brown, whoever, with the fact that, of course, James Boyd got the seat warm this past weekend. Tom Brady in the
I saw that.
two-seater with Jimmy Johnson coming up before the race a week from Sunday. So you'll get your booing in towards Tom Brady. It will be the very rare times you will hear booing at that facility, and that will be the warm-up for the booing that will commence 10 hours later inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I'm good with it. It's a good practice booing session. A nice little 20, 30 seconds of booing as they show Brady on the Jumbotron, and then that'll get you ready for Sunday night Game 3.
Kevin coming up with an excellent game plan for race day. Excellent game
Where's
plan.
the sportsmanship, Kevin?
For Brady?
Where's the sportsmanship for
Brady?
Tom Brady?
Coming from you, James Boyd.
I couldn't even say that with a straight face. You know I'm a hater, so I might get a few practice boos in as well.
By the way, I'm all for Brady in the two-seater. I mean that in all seriousness. I know a lot of people are like, how dare they?
How tall is he?
He's
like 6'4", 6'5".
I was gonna say
I know the height limit they told me when I signed the waiver
Yeah.
was 6'5".
Yeah, I mean I was.
Yeah.
So
He's right
I'm
there.
6'3", and I was very crammed when I did it. For those unfamiliar, if you watch IndyCar races, you saw Alec Pierce actually this past weekend. He did the two-seater around the road course. Alex Rodriguez did it in the opening race of the year at St. Pete. They haven't done it at the 500, but Jimmy Johnson will be driving Tom Brady around, and I am all about this when it comes to these dignitaries, if you will, for the 500. Can you draw outside eyes? And whether it's Michael Strahan in the pace car, whether it's Gronk in the snake pit, whether it's Jimmy Johnson and Tom Brady in the two-seater, those people will draw extra eyes. And at the end of the day, if you want to sum it up very succinctly, TV networks run the sports world. And what TV network is this
100%.
airing on? Fox.
Mhm.
Where is Tom Brady? Fox. So That's probably the simplest way to put it.
Doesn't
But
Jimmy
yes.
Johnson work for them too?
I believe so. But yes, some early boo. Some 12:41 p.m. boos we'll get a week from Sunday when they show Tom Brady in the car, and then the greatest spectacle will take place after.
And I think 300,000 strong is the way to go.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
mean, there have been people in this city been waiting to do that for a long time. They didn't wait for this. They've done it during his entire career every time the Colts played him. But this is just another way to kind of get it out there, James.
I'm with it. Like I
It's all
said,
good.
anytime you can boo throughout sports allows you to hate responsibly. When can you do that in your normal life? I can't just walk around hating people, but in sports, yes, I can.
See, it's in you. It's in you. I love that about you. It's
Yeah.
in you there.
I'm an honest hater. I've said this many times. I do not have respect for you if you are not an honest hater. Like growing up, I hated LeBron James. Why? Not because he was a bad player. It was because he put the Bulls out every year. So as long as you admit that you're an honest hater, we're all good with that.
How about you, KB? Who was your big nemesis as a kid growing up in sports?
Starks, the Knicks, Brady. Yeah, I mean, I grew up, in this market, so yeah.
Are you like Reggie, where it's like, if I see him, I'm still swinging on him?
Yeah, Oakley, LJ, Jeff Van Gundy, weirdly, Pat Riley. Yeah, I mean, all of them.
All I can ever imagine for the rest of my life, I'll picture Jeff Van Gundy being dragged down the court, holding on to the ankle of Alonzo Mourning.
It was one of the more impressive athletic feats I've seen.
Just dragging him down the sideline right there.
Dragging them down. James Boyd, what stood out? Colts schedule, biggest takeaway that didn't involve your own life.
Yeah, I'm sounding pretty selfish the last few days, so I take that in jest. But I seriously think it's the last 6-game stretch because it's so backloaded with AFC South opponents.
Will you rattle it off for fans that maybe aren't locked in on the schedule just yet?
Sorry.
Again, the Colts have their bye week 12 or week 11 right after the Germany game. I
Yes.
assume you mean starting with at Kansas City. They will come out of their bye week at Kansas City.
Yeah, so that's like the last 7. So the last 6 was what I referenced. So you got Houston at home, then you go to Jacksonville, then you go to Seattle, then you come home for San Francisco on Monday night, then you have a home game against the Jaguars, and you close it out at Houston. So again, I think for the last 6 are division games. You have to handle your business in those games, especially against those opponents. I mean, if you wanted to win the division, I would think you probably have to beat Houston at least once. And then looking at the Jaguars, when are you ever going to beat them in Jacksonville? Just get it done. And I think they're going to be a more formidable team this year anyway, so it'll kind of be a good barometer for where you're at. But I think the trade-off is that at that point in the season, you'll kind of know, okay, what's worked, what hasn't. You'll probably have your quarterback stuff, I would think, solidified as far as like who's going to be your starter down the stretch. And then you know what it takes to get into the playoffs at that point if you're still in the hunt.
Yeah, I would say something that stood out to me, too, late in the year. It's the exact opposite of last year, and I think it benefits the Colts on paper. Last year, you faced the Texans both games before Halloween. This year, you don't see the Houston Texans until after Thanksgiving. I mean, James just mentioned it there. You will play Houston twice in the final 6 games. Wouldn't you think that is a little bit advantage Colts and that you would hope Lou Anarumo's defense would have settled in by that point of a new install year 1. And Stroud is he's the injury in the AFC South that could totally shift things. I mean, he is the one, like if CJ Stroud were to tear his ACL tomorrow, that greatly shifts that division.
What if they just can't block for the guy?
Or that as well.
Seriously.
And so again, I think that is
That
advantage
was
Colts a
problematic.
little bit of that's 3.5 months or 3 months into the season.
Yeah,
So if Stroud is, battled and bruised and has been hit a bunch,
fair.
at that point that could play into you. You also will face the Titans. They get the treatment of Houston last year. You'll face Tennessee twice before Halloween this year. Well, Tennessee's got the rookie quarterback. Cam Ward in December might look different than Cam Ward in September.
Got to knock him off.
So I think that is a nice advantage for you on that front. So again, there's a lot of focus around the AFC South games every year. Last year was super front-loaded. This year it is super back-loaded, along with the Houston Texans being twice in the final 6 weeks.
Kevin, you talked a lot back at Combine about this division and really this conference. The fact that there are just so many good quarterbacks in the conference, more so than even the division right now. And you take a look at what that lineup of quarterbacks is. You're going to have Tua against Miami in week number 1. Bo Nix and the Broncos. And remains to be seen. Is he going to build on that rookie season, or does he have a bit of a sophomore slump, as many quarterbacks do sometimes? remains to be seen. You'll probably get your first look as Cam Ward, I'm certainly thinking would be the starter from week 1 for the Tennessee Titans, don't you think, James?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all certainly going to be a test for you. I think we'll see early on what does this Lou Anarumo defense look like against a team like Miami with ideally, a healthy Tua. That's going to change some things. They still have Jalen Waddle. They still have Tyreek Hill. Both of those guys are, to my knowledge, still very fast. So how do you cover them and how do you kind of account for that? So much is going to be a test for, Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones in your offense. What does your defense look like? And can your defense just keep you in more games than they did last year? I mean, the big reason you made the change, Kevin, was because for 3 straight years under Gus Bradley, you were a turnstile defense. You gave up a lot of points every year. I think it was like 28th in scoring, 28th. It might have been 24th one of those years, but you never finished, in the upper half of the league. And will that change in 2025?
Yeah, I cannot emphasize these first 2 games more because, when you haven't won a season over since 2013, obviously week 1 is going to carry a lot of weight. But when you look at the schedule, I mean, you just said Tua and Bo Nix. If you were to rattle off all the quarterbacks you'll face at Lucas Oil this season, you could make the case Tua and Bo Nix might be the 2 best quarterbacks you face inside of Lucas Oil. I mean, you don't have a very daunting home schedule. And if you look at the playoff standings from last year, if you look at recent years, I think the expectation is what? Kansas City's going to win the West, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that puts Denver in the wild card. You got to think Buffalo's probably going to win the AFC East. Okay, that puts Miami in the wild card. Well, if you think Houston's going to win the AFC South again, that would put Indy in the wild card. And if you look at last year's schedule, the fact that the Colts beat the Dolphins, granted with Tyler Huntley and Tad Boyle, but the fact that they beat the Dolphins was important late in the season when you started to look at these standings and potential playoff scenarios. The fact that the Colts lost to Denver was also huge when you looked at some of these playoff scenarios. So these first 2 games, I get that it's probably a hair ludicrous to talk playoff stuff on May 15th, but I could very well see us get to December 15th and all of a sudden looking at the standings and being like, damn, week 1 against Miami was kind of important. Week 2 against Denver was kind of important. And you get them both in your own building to start the year. And unlike last year, the thought's got to be that Tua will be healthy for week 1. I mean, that was a huge part of that Miami game that Tua didn't play. Remember, Tyreek Hill barely touched the ball in that game against Huntley and Boyle there. So when that schedule came out last night, I thought that stood out to me as well. The home games are against some kind of like-minded opponents, if you will, right out of the gate.
And you talked earlier this morning, James, about the last 6 games that the Colts will have. I mean, it's not going to be easy. Home against the Texans, road against Jacksonville, road against Seattle, Monday night at home against San Francisco, home against Jacksonville, and then road against the Texans again. That's not necessarily all that easy, my friend.
No, it's not easy to make the playoffs either, which they haven't done. So, and I know, going back to Kevin's point, you don't want to talk about the playoffs on May 15th, and maybe it's premature or whatever the case may be. I told you all maybe 2 weeks ago, if they don't win game 1, they're not making the playoffs. Win your home opener. Win your season opener. Do something different. I feel like every year they kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball. And I'll be honest, I don't think this team is built to play from behind schedule-wise or score-wise. So you might want to try to, again, I'm not saying if you go 0-1, it's all over. That's a bit of a hot take, and I'm just throwing it out there for, chatter, I guess. But
trying to be Stephen A. over there.
I almost jumped across this desk. But
he's not getting the Stephen A. paycheck. I can assure you that.
Hurled over there.
Yeah, I mean, you laughed a little too hard, Colin. You're a guest here.
Well, okay, but calling out.
Tell us more.
I'm
tell
used
us
to
more.
and snickering over there, and Kylan's gonna all of a sudden croak on us over here.
Oh man, but I do think, and again, if they start off 0-2, are you picking this team to make the playoffs? No.
And it's not usual to have 2 home games right out of the gate. So that's something in your advantage
Kylan,
as well.
Me and Kylan got beef now, man. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Look at her stepping in.
A couple other scheduling notes to keep an eye on. Matt Taylor, by the way, voice of the Colts, going to join us here in about an hour. We'll have James Hinchcliffe, does an outstanding job on Fox. I've enjoyed his analysis. He'll join us coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. No home games from Halloween to Thanksgiving. So you will have a game in Berlin during that stretch. You will have your bye week, but no home games from the end of October through Thanksgiving. And also the Colts have a ton of 4 o'clock games. Last year when the schedule came out, it was like every game was Sunday at 1 o'clock.
As God intended.
This year, with a lot
Are
of...
you being selfish again, James Boyd?
No, I think most fans love the 1 p.m. kickoff. Seriously, in this market?
I would say most do. Some do enjoy a primetime game or two. And again, you will have one home Monday night game. We'll see if that gets flexed out or not. By the way, there's no chance the Manning cast does that game, right? Don't they always take like the Christmas game off?
Yeah.
December 22nd.
People were like, well, here, Peyton Manning's real thoughts on the quarterback situation. I'm like, no, you will not.
Yeah. Pre-Christmas, I could very well see them taking that game off. But you have 5 4:05 or 4:25 kicks. And I think that is a huge part of the West Coast flavor to your schedule here. So again, they will have 3 separate trips to the West Coast and a trip to Berlin. The Colts really travel the most of any like non-coastal team in the entire NFL this season. When you look at their schedule.
On the interior, yeah.
At the Rams week 4, back to LA in week 7, over to Berlin in week 10, and then up to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle. That is a mid-December game in Seattle. Can only imagine what the weather will look like for that one.
It's interesting. We talked about those last 6 games and the quarterbacks that are involved there. You do see C.J. Stroud twice, which we talked about. Trevor Lawrence you see twice. You see also the new and improved Sam Darnold in Seattle. And then you see Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy. Is he going to have a big game? I mean, you're facing guys who can sling the ball and certainly will give their teams a chance. So we'll see what happens. And then the good thing about it, and I'll give the NFL credit for this, we go through these schedules every year, and there's always a few teams where we're like, there's no chance they'll win this many games, or, oh, this team is guaranteed to do whatever. The parity in the league is always pretty good. Even last year, I want to say the Colts their 8 wins were all by 1 score. So it usually comes down to a couple of plays, a couple of drives. So if you're in the game, as I wrote in my kind of preview article for the schedule, is your quarterback play going to be good enough for you to win some games you might not are supposed to on paper? So we'll see how that kind of shakes out later down the line.
No Thursday night games, which I feel like the Colts haven't had many Thursday night games in recent years.
I thought their one primetime game would have been like Thursday night against the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon Prime, I think, is now – they're honestly, you look at the Thursday schedule, and I think it's gotten better here in recent years. So right now, the lone primetime game, again, December 22nd, that is a home Monday night game against the 49ers. And just to warn everybody, those games can be flexed. Monday night games can be flexed, so something to keep an eye on. Last year, of course, the Colts had one primetime game, and that got flexed out with the New York Jets. So we will wait and see that. But everything up, 1075thefan.com. And, of course, James has got reaction over on The Athletic.
I thought it was Stephen A.
Kylan?
Nah, don't get her laughing again.
A lot of commas would be needed to add to the old paycheck, right?
Really excited, though, with our guest list coming up today and tomorrow. A little bit later on today, we'll talk to Matt Taylor, Pat Boylan. James Hinchcliffe is supposed to join us at 9:30 this morning. Then tomorrow, a little Colts flavor. You want to take a shot at the name again, James? I like hearing you say it.
Wait, say it again?
JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah, JT Tuimoloau.
There you go.
I got it, baby.
You've been practicing.
I can spell it.
You've been
Beautiful,
practicing.
I can spell it.
That was as good as your smothered chicken.
Yeah.
There you go. Smothered chicken.
And then Tony Kanaan tomorrow as well. So a big couple of days. We had Rick Carlisle yesterday.
I do have to share. Maybe I'll do it in the 8 o'clock hour. I felt like I was making a drug deal yesterday downtown Indianapolis.
Okay.
Palms got sweaty.
He ain't no real drug dealer because he's snitching on himself.
Palms got sweaty real quick.
Oh, man,
the knees
got to have a
were weak.
cold.
There might have been a little spit up on the sweater already. It was.
You clearly didn't watch The Wire. Or at least you didn't pay attention.
It was a little shady for me, so I'll probably share that coming up 8 o'clock hour. I do feel this way about the 500. I was watching James Hinchcliffe and some of the practice coverage yesterday. I feel like one of the most underrated aspects to the 500 for these 33 drivers is the mental grind of the race. Like they were asking, I think it was Kyle Larson maybe. They were asking Kyle Larson, like planning ahead for later in the race, like thinking about, okay, if this, circumstance occurs, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, the 500 is really unlike any sport. First off, obviously it's an individual sport and like you can't substitute the driver out. But I mean, think about it. Tyrese Halliburton will get a mental break when he gets checked out of a game. During every foul shot, he can go hands on the hips. He can get water. He can go talk to his coaches, He can literally just relax on the bench, like not have to play in the game. You think about a football player. How many times do you see, Mahomes or whoever on the Microsoft Surface on the bench? When the defense is out there, you don't have to worry about, physical and mental exhaustion for X amount of minutes here. And I just think back to these drivers of like, you're going 200 miles per hour and you have to avoid disaster around you with 32 cars. And like pit stops are hardly a rest.
And cars are inches away from you on either side.
During pit stops, you can get penalties that have single-handedly changed races. Ask that to Scott Dixon. Ask that to Alex Palou. Ask that to Kyle Larson last year. Like, it is, I feel like that's just one of the more underrated aspects of you have to do your thinking going 200 miles per hour with 32 cars around you.
With no break ever.
With no break. Like, again, you have timeouts in other sports.
The force on your body. Like, when I went on, like, the road car, I was like, dang, like, that is a lot of stress to put on yourself.
Right, and like, that's the physical element, which, again, speaks for itself. But I'm thinking, like, tactically, if you're thinking to yourself, hey,
I ain't thinking about that for a while.
Lap 188 here, if I'm on this strategy and boom, I need to do this, and now I'm going to change my line maybe a little bit than what I had it on lap 88. The thought process of thinking through that, and I get you can talk to your team via a headset, but there is no, hey, you've struggled, you've turned the ball over a couple times, come over here and sit next to Coach Carlisle for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll put you back in the game. Or, hey, here's a foul shot, put those hands on the hips. Like, there's none of that.
And I don't think you can undersell in any way, shape, or form the fact that you are a split second from disaster at all times, James Boyd. You make one mistake, or the driver next to you makes one mistake, you might be flying down the backstretch for 200 yards.
See, that's why God put certain things in certain people, because my fear factor level would never allow me to do that. I do have a question, though, about the 500. What time should I get there? I've been asking the YouTube chat. They're like, get there early. I'm like, what does early mean? Because, again, I'm like, do I have to get there
How
with
long
the
do you want
birds
to take
chirping?
to get there? How long do you think it's going to take you to get there?
I guess another question would be, can I get dropped off by an Uber? Like, can my mom drop me off? My parents pick me up? But like,
and it'll take stress off you,
like,
but it's not going to get you there any faster.
Because I'm like, I'm so serious. If I have to walk a mile, 2 miles, whatever.
No. You are young. You are spry. Get the Uber drop off. If I remember correctly, I think there's one right off Main Street and Speedway. And then from there into the media center. I mean, if you're getting there at 8 a.m., something like that, 9 a.m., I don't know. It's probably a 45-minute walk, 30-minute walk.
See, that is fine. People are like, you got to get there early. You want to make sure you get fine parking. I'm like,
I don't know. If you're a fake fan if you're not being there at crack of dawn, watching the sunrise.
When you try sushi, you don't just go for like the thing you don't really recognize. You got to ease me in. This is my first one.
Are you going California roll for that?
Exactly.
We need to hear. We need to hear from the folks that have been there 25, 30, 35 times that just do it. They could do it in their sleep now.
Maybe you need to sleep in the Coke lot Saturday night.
With JMV?
Oh, no.
He was thinking about it, and then I said with JMV, and you're like, no.
Somewhere Mark Dykton is hearing Sleeping with JMV and James Boyd, and he's playing different sounders right now.
Oh, Lord.
That's right. That's how that goes. But I will tell you this. Beginning at 6 a.m. Sunday morning, simulcast right here from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan and 93 WIBC. It'll be JMV and Tony Katz and a cast of thousands. Everybody out at the track giving you updates on everything that's happening at the track, lifestyle things, driver interviews from the paddock, gasoline alley, whatever you want to call it. All those kinds of things coming up on Sunday morning on race day beginning at 6 a.m. Network coverage begins at 11, and then we'll have the post-race show leading you right into the pregame show for the Pacers that night, Kevin. It's going to be a big day.
We call that Christmas.
Christmas.
Christmas in the great state of Indiana. It is a hell of a day. I cannot wait. Mother Nature cooperates, and I will be a very, very happy human.
All right. We'll talk more about the Pacers and a day off for them yesterday and what lies ahead as we continue next. It's 93.5.
You didn't tease the drug deal.
This dude he's no Stringer Bell, I'll tell you that.
I think the fact that he's teasing it, I can't wait to hear now. That's all coming up at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning, everyone. I don't know. Did you stay up watching basketball late last night, James Boyd, or did you take a little bit of time off with the Pacers getting a rest last night?
Do you know me?
Well, yeah, I know. You probably stayed up till 2 in the morning.
Then,
I don't know.
hey,
you,
I was
man.
up watching the game, man. I gotta watch the death of the Warriors.
Yeah. As soon as the Celtics had that game in the bag of the Knicks, I was off to bed.
Oh, you ain't got to
night.
tell me that. Look, I know you know me. I know you. By 8:31, you in REM sleep.
My wife, every night, I don't know what this is. My wife looks at me. She goes, "You're going to bed already?" Like every night, I'm like, you know me.
The consistency.
Kevin Bowen, you have me more than intrigued now. You're minding your own business, walking around downtown yesterday. And
Selling drugs.
And what happened?
Yeah, I must admit, I felt a little drug dealer yesterday. Shout out to the great Parlor Public House over there off of Ohio streets. Nothing like stating where the crime occurred. But, on Tuesday, I'll admit I was a little nervous asking Rick Carlisle one of the final questions.
Don't implicate him.
That I asked him. No. And Kyle and I will apologize up front. Late in that interview, I felt like there were still two things on my mind. One, do you need to say anything to Benedict Mathurin for the ejection from Sunday night? And I thought Rick, honestly, one of his more candid answers in explaining, I did say something to Ben, and he expanded on that. And then he was a little shorter on the other answer. I asked him about the Plot Rickens t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so for those that missed it, Sunday inside a Gamebridge Fieldhouse, you had an individual rocking a t-shirt that simply said "The Plot Rickens" with like a, what would you call it, like a black silhouette almost of Rick Carlisle and like a
Shadowy, yeah.
bootleg Pacer logo.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly was a shirt that I hadn't seen. I think Tony East maybe walked over and took a picture of said individual. I felt like, okay, let's ask Rick that question. Nothing like asking a head coach the day of a clinching playoff game about a T-shirt that he might have spotted in the stands on the list of the dumbest questions I've probably ever asked. That one might be atop the list. James, he called it, I think he said people do some zany things.
Zany was the word that he used.
Okay.
Zany.
Zany things. So I thought the T-shirt was outstanding. And somehow, some way, I came across said individual on Twitter and DM'd said individual and goes, "How do I get this shirt?" And the response, I didn't know his name until I shook his hand yesterday in the Parlor Public parking lot. His response was, "Meet me at 11:15 tomorrow morning at the Parlor Public House. You can Venmo me." So, Kyle and I apologize. I will be taking off my shirt right now and putting on the Plot Rickens t-shirt. But I have it right here.
Oh, we like that.
Oh, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
I thought Mark was in today, honestly.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I apologize, Kylan, up front.
Hey, for those who are into it, he's on the stream. He literally is on the stream.
Kylan is severely studying her computer screen
There you go,
on the
YouTube.
opposite side.
YouTube
Oh, my
audience,
goodness.
great glimpse of the shirt before I put
The
it on here.
Plot
Oh, my goodness.
Rickens. I like that right there. That'll add to your eclectic
Not gonna
collection
lie,
of
kind of
things.
thick on the material.
Yeah. So
But
maybe
hey, for $30, the Plot Rickens. Thoughts?
That is the kind of fire, I'm not going to lie.
I like that T-shirt actually.
Oh,
I
my
actually really
gosh.
like that T-shirt.
You
Oh,
think,
my gosh.
James, you think I should go a little selfie and send it to
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I don't know about that. Getting ready for the conference finals.
Wait until the day after they
I mean,
win
we
a
got
game.
5 days, 6 days until game one.
This is true, but I don't know.
Maybe wear it to the golf
Plot
tournament next year.
Rickens, Grayson, thank you for the T-shirt. He pulled into the parking lot. The windows were a little tinted. I wasn't sure if it was him. I rolled down the window. He rolled down the window.
Oh, it's through the car.
We gave a head nod. I kept the flashers on, got out of the car, shook his hand. He's never heard. I was like, "Oh yeah, we actually had Rick on the radio show the other day," and I mentioned. He's like, "Dude, I have no idea who you are. Will you just Venmo me $30?" And I was like, "Sure."
Now, I've never been a part of a transaction like that, James, but I'm guessing in most transactions like
sweating.
that, people probably, and you wouldn't know either, I don't think, but people probably don't shake hands at the end of it.
I mean, don't ask me. I am not.
So I said, you don't know either.
I said, you're asking me
I
what's
gave him a nice
what's
firm
the play-by-play?
handshake here.
Everything I know about drug dealing came from The Wire.
That's what I was
So,
saying.
You know,
That's it, from The Wire. That's what we know. But
Hey,
I'm thinking
I am a
those guys
model
don't
citi-
shake hands.
Jesse Boyd, if you're listening, your son still does not do any drugs. The YouTube chat is killing me. Kevin, they're like, you walked over to the guy and said, "Can I have one marijuana, please?"
Yeah, somebody's in here like, did you get an 8-ball with that? Well, no. Yeah, that's where the deal stopped.
Kevin would be more like, "Got any gummies?"
I thought about asking Grayson, would you like a latte inside?
Someone said the first one is usually free.
The public house is a small parking lot too. I did not. It looked like a very nice establishment. So shout out to Grayson and this shirt here. But I don't know if should I send it to Rick Carlisle or is that a no-no?
I would. Time matters there. Time and context, I think, matter.
Okay, well, it's Thursday morning. Game one's not until Wednesday, right?
He probably
got 6 days.
He was probably going over tape of two teams last night till 1 a.m.
I'll let you use your judgment on that one.
I mean, he was sending me nonstop pictures from the Notre Dame Louisville game this year. It was his first ever Notre Dame football game. Honestly, we should probably ask him about this. Well, maybe we'll wait till the offseason. But this man was a kid in a candy store at the Notre Dame Louisville football game. I mean, I'm getting pictures in front of Touchdown Jesus, in front of the Holt statue, with Marcus Freeman, with the band. I mean, that man was in heaven at that game. And I don't know if the Plot Rickens t-shirt rivals it, but I kind of like it.
How much fun, though, for coaches and athletes to be able to go to somebody else's game and not have to worry at all about the game beforehand, afterhand. Just go have a good time and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it must be great. I mean, honestly, that's why I love going to high school games. I get to go and see Kyle Neddenriep from Star, who's fantastic, work, and I don't. And I tell him, you do a great job. I'll read your story after I get back home. But, brother, the buzzer went off. I'll see you later. But I think that's always a good reminder of kind of why you enjoy sports. 'Cause I think most of us grew up as fans or athletes first before you get into coaching and writing and things like that.
I mean, honestly, it's why I love the Indy 500 so much. I say this to Maddie a lot. It's like, it's kind of the one true sporting event each year outside of Notre Dame where I am purely in fan mode and just eat it up. And obviously, I'm throwing on the headset, listening to our guys, and it's an unbelievable picture that they paint. But at the same time, I am there to enjoy everything that makes that race the greatest spectacle. So I cannot wait.
It's a lot of fun. And
Should I wear this on race day?
Yes. Yes.
Is that a little bootleg Pacers logo?
Probably.
Yeah, I'm like 99% sure they didn't get the copyright clearance.
But it's there.
But
Instagram DM with the guy, Grayson, back and forth. I finally, at the end, I was like, here's my number in case.
Did he tell you to lose
happens.
his afterwards?
Well, then he texted me later in the day. He's like, hey, man, you mind sending me that audio of the question that you asked Rick about the shirt? I'm like, sure. I'm like, just to warn you, man, it's not, you're not going to be blown away by the response. He listens to it. He's like, oh, okay. You weren't kidding about that. I'm like, well, I mean, let's add some context around it. It's the day of the game clinching, Game 5 in Cleveland. I didn't expect a very expansive answer. I was honestly impressed he used the word zany.
But he ended up being a stand-up guy, though. That's the best part of it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And nothing shadowy about
every
that.
drug dealer, is always a stand-up guy.
Not speaking from experience.
No, because he is an expert on The Wire. How many times you watched that series now?
I think I've probably only seen it twice, but it is one of the best series ever. I just got a kick out of this entire story because no one, gives a tease in, many different ways, like Kevin Bowen.
I love it. It's the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen, the still uncompromised Kevin Bowen, I might add.
Trying to get the best selfie angle. I feel like a girl going to prom right now.
You don't seem practiced at selfies, which is a good thing.
Not.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. He's taking a selfie, including the Hubler Automotive Group microphone flag, right?
Well, always.
Yeah, the DriveHubler.com studios right here is what we're doing. And Kylan, what do you think of this nonsense now that you've been here for an hour and a half?
I'm just mad KB didn't tell me sooner that he was going to be
stripping
in the middle of the show.
Kylan, I'm so sorry.
She was so
honestly,
focused.
I totally
I
forgot it was
naked
Kylan.
man. This is like
I was
GTA.
really hoping it would be Corbin today. Sorry, Kylan.
I will say she was very focused on the computer screen opposite side of the room when Kevin was.
Can I tell you what I was doing that whole time?
Yeah.
I was trying to find this.
Oh, gosh.
That's outstanding stuff right there. Kevin Bowen, great work out of you outside of the studio. I'm impressed. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for right there.
Well, I was talking to our 9 o'clock guest, Pat Boylan, yesterday, and I think he'd be okay with me sharing this, Pat. I apologize if it's too early. But an emphasis on if, very emphasis on if, a lot of F's on that. But if indeed the Pacers are the last one standing, Pat Boylan said when that parade happens, he's rocking the Plot Rickens t-shirt in the parade. And this is before I had it in my hand. So I didn't respond. I said to Pat, just silence. And then I just responded with a picture of the t-shirt. And he simply, where did you get that?
So it's out on your social media now, right?
No.
Soon?
Not yet,
No,
but yes, soon.
not yet. All right, we'll look forward to that. Tell you what, let's do this right now because we got a lot to tell you about. Let's check it down, Kylan. James Boyd, great day for you yesterday. You now know who, when, what, where, how between the Pacers, the Colts, everything else. You're good to go, right?
Yeah, and so are the fans. You get a chance to plan your trips and things like that. 2 LA trips this year, obviously, 1 to Seattle. And looking at the schedule from a opponent standpoint and where you might be as far as the playoff race, the last 6 is where I go. You got 4 in the division, and then you'll be able to know kind of where you stand late in the year.
And, Kevin, it looks like 2 games at home back-to-back to open the season for the Indianapolis Colts after the schedule reveal from the NFL last night.
Yeah, I would say the things that stood out to me schedule-wise. One, the home Monday night game, Week 16. Again, that is the San Francisco 49ers, December 22nd. That is your home Monday night game. It can be flexed. Manning cast around Christmas sounds a bit far-fetched to me, but we'll see how all that plays out. And then again, you get the Houston Texans twice after Thanksgiving. Last year, you faced them both times before Halloween. I think with installing a new defense, C.J. Stroud potentially getting beat up as the year goes along, I think that's an advantage for the Colts there later in the season. So plenty more reaction. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, will join us on the other side. Some people are saying I got ripped off.
That's a great T-shirt.
That it should be $30 or something like
They're
that.
finding it for $19.99. I mean, think about shipping and handling. I got a face-to-face interaction with the man. I thought it was $30 well spent.
And a good story.
A great story.
Yeah.
Taking one for the team. I like that, Kevin. And getting a great T-shirt.
You know, it's always going to be some haters out there, Kevin.
Preach.
Brush them off your shoulders, brother.
Preach.
In your new T-shirt. Come on, man.
Also, speaking of schedules, because the Celtics extend their series with the New York Knicks last night, we now know when the Eastern Conference Finals are going to start. It'll be on Wednesday night on the road at either New York or Boston. All Eastern Conference Finals games will start at 8 p.m., which means no conflict of any kind, hopefully, between the Racers and Pacers on Sunday, race day. Race scheduled to get going right around noon, as always, and then 8 p.m. the start for the Pacers that night. Yeah,
it'll be a long day for many of us, but a fun sports field day that is, just unique to Indiana.
All right.
Scotty, remind me again if you're listening. 7:45, was that the final lap last year? Can you imagine if we had a game 3 that was starting 15 minutes after Newgarden passes Pato Award?
Knocking on the wood right now.
Can you imagine?
Well, here's I'm just letting people know now because of the way things work, contractually and everything else. Both the race will be on both stations, WIBC and 107.5 The Fan. All day long Sunday, starting at 6 a.m. Our coverage will continue until the very last second of either the post-race show that we're looking forward to having, or, look, if something like that did happen, when 7:30 comes on the nose, Pacers pregame begins here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. So at least you know where to go if that does happen. You can just go to 93 WIBC.
Just makes me sweat.
It's my nightmare. It's my personal nightmare.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, that just makes me sweat thinking about that.
Makes you sweat. James, you want to talk about keeping me up at night? That's what keeps me up at night.
Nothing keeps you up at night. Come on,
no,
Jeff.
Come
on, Jeff.
If only that were true, my man.
I hear you.
Meanwhile, the NBA playoffs did continue last night. As I alluded to a moment ago, the Boston Celtics 127-102 winners over the New York Knicks. And, man, they did it without Jason Tatum, who's lost for the year with that terrible Achilles injury. But, man, did they get some key guys stepping up. Derek White led the team with 34 points. They made 22 three-pointers. And off the bench at center, how about Luke Cornett, JB, with 7 blocked shots protecting the lane?
Certainly was. Did you see the elbow that Josh Hart took, by the way? Man, he was leaking. The
like
blood was everywhere.
fighter.
I was like, whoa. Like, the Knicks fans
Celtics don't know what you're talking about.
That. If they get out of this series, they will frame that. That will be, on a T-shirt like the one you have on very soon.
Also, late last night, the Minnesota Timberwolves over the Golden State Warriors, 121-110. They send the Warriors packing. Steph Curry left late in game one with a hamstring injury, never to be seen again. And are the Warriors to be seen again moving forward, James?
I think so, mainly because you have Steph Curry, you have Jimmy Butler, and their record together was phenomenal when they were both in the lineup. But obviously, a year older, it certainly doesn't, keep the window open much longer for you to try to go chase the championship. So I know this one really stings for Steph Curry in particular.
Are we selling the Minnesota Timberwolves short a little bit? I mean, they did make it to the Western Conference Finals against Dallas last year.
I think I am. I mean, I don't know if they win that series against the Warriors.
Especially if Randall's looking like this.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I might have sold him short. And Anthony Edwards just continues to, take that next step into superstardom. So we'll see what happens. And that guy lacks no confidence.
No. And remember, Randall didn't play last year against the Pacers.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that was another storyline, and him in the playoffs has been a storyline. He was outstanding this whole series. So, yes, Minnesota will await the winner of tonight, or I should say, if it is the Thunder tonight, Game 6, Thunder at the Nuggets.
Yeah, that one starts at 8:30 tonight, and you are more optimistic on the Nuggets' chances than I am, and maybe I'm just.
I mean, you got
maybe
Jokic,
I'm just trying not to get myself built up to be disappointed.
I mean, hell, they almost won Game 5. They were right there. So it's been a great series. I'm really looking forward to the standalone action here tonight.
When you have the best player in the world, you always have a chance in basketball.
Got a chance.
Scotty just checking in. Yes, 7:45 p.m. That was.
So Joseph Newgarden has won back-to-back Indy 500s, and when the white flag was thrown, he didn't lead either time.
Just got to get it done at the end.
I mean, that is insane.
That's managing the race, I would say.
Well, that's something.
Man.
Tell him to get it done again so I can see history.
What is more history, 3 in a row, or if Elio wins 5?
I'm Elio. I'm Team Elio forever. I hope he wins 3 more. I don't think that's
Elio winning a 5th.
We went from 1 to 3, kind of quick there.
Because neither of them we've seen 3 in a row or potentially winning 5.
I'm going to go 3. 3 in a row is crazy.
And Elio was very close.
I know.
When Joe DeFerrin won back in whatever that would have been, 02, 03. Yeah, I mean, those are, of the many storylines. Winning a 5th at 50 is pretty freaking crazy.
Yeah.
But the 3 in a row, and again, Newgarden didn't lead on 199. It's not like Newgarden was like, Elio was a dominant car throughout that 3-year run. Newgarden's been very good, but he hasn't been like leading for 50, 100, 150 laps, something like that. So of the many storylines we'll continue to get to, and again, James Hinchcliffe will join us here coming up in about an hour.
A 500 is a different race from anything else on the circuit, and so far it's been dominated by Alex Palou. You got to think that he is the odds-on favorite going in, right?
Vegas does not think that.
I haven't looked at the Vegas
they've
odds
got,
yet.
I think, 3 or 4 people at plus 800. So if you are all in on Alex Palou, winning his first ever oval, again, he's not won on an oval yet, you can get some pretty good odds. But yeah, right now I think it's him, Newgarden, Pato, and Larson, maybe all at plus 800. So we'll see how those play out here with quals coming up this
I
weekend.
think the Larson thing is just people wanting to bet on something like that, or
probably a little bit of that.
Yeah.
To be fair to him, he very respectable in his first showing.
Yeah. Major League Baseball, the Cardinals finally lost a game, their first game of a doubleheader with the Philadelphia Phillies. They dropped that one 2-1, but they came back to score a bunch of runs in the second half. 14-7 was the final score in the nightcap. The Cubs losing at home against the Miami Marlins. 3-1 was the final score there. The Reds on Pete Rose Day, losing for the second game in a row to the Chicago White Sox of all team, Kevin.
Nasty work.
Do we have to bring it up when Mark's not here? Can we just move on?
Oh, no, I'm here. Mark, I'm your spirit animal today. That is nasty work.
We got cars on the track. We got local flavor in the PGA Championship. Do we really have to talk about the Reds?
Did you see the people that were on hand to speak about Pete Rose before the game?
I did not.
Barry Larkin was there. The guy that had played for him, George Foster, who played with him, was there. And a nice little ceremony for him. And, of course, this comes a day after baseball has rescinded his lifetime ban.
They honestly should probably keep him banned after the Reds just lost 2 in a row to the White Sox.
Just by extension.
Yeah. Whether Pete deserves that or not. Again, cars of the track today. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to be a steamy one over there at IMS. So far, 2 days in, no incidents. A lot of Ganassi and Penske flavor atop the speed charts. Yesterday, Connor Daly up there. Talk about a man that can stir some loud cheers over there at IMS. So this will be our final day before the boost goes up on Fast Friday. And again, we will set the field 13-30 coming up on Saturday. And can I get the little nerdy golf local item here?
Yeah.
Am I allowed?
On the first day of the PGA, of course.
We are at the second major of the year, Quail Hollow, Jeff's stomping grounds. It is the PGA Championship. Rory McIlroy, of course, trying to make it 2 for 2. Bombers Paradise, very wet golf course, very long golf course. Shout out to Eric Steger, the Noblesville product, Pebblebrook Golf Course, the Ball State legend there. He is competing as a PGA Club Pro, and Timothy Wiseman, another Ball State product. So a couple local angles here in the PGA Championship. They call this the toughest major. It is the largest field of pretty much the top 100 players. So while it doesn't have maybe the history of the Masters or the U.S. Open or the British, it is a great, great field, and very much looking forward to that.
You were right about it being a wet golf course. They have just been deluged with rain the last 2 days down in Charlotte. I also thought it was interesting. I thought of you yesterday when I was watching Rory McIlroy talk about getting ready for the PGA, and he loves this golf course. He's won there a couple of times. But he said, the pressure's completely off. I've done everything I wanted to do as a kid growing up. I've won all 4 majors, had success. I just want to go have a good time and play golf now. And I wonder what that means with pressure off of him and his game at peak right now, what that means.
Yeah, and again, as much as it pains me to say it, I think Bryson DeChambeau is a very good pick this week. When you talk about what he did at Augusta, you talk about long hitters as well. So looking forward to the PGA Championship. It has already begun down there in Charlotte.
All right, coming up in a minute, we'll talk about the Colts schedule release and how things are going for at least the rookies that we've seen so far, as Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, stops by to tell us about that. It's the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, Jeff, and Kylan in for Mark today. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
I know a little about Tom Petty, but obviously,
do yourself a
before
favor.
my time.
Do yourself a favor though. YouTube Tom Petty Prince.
Okay.
Check that video out.
Okay.
That is some big time stuff.
I know
right
he's a
there.
legend.
Yeah. Matt Taylor going to join us, the voice of the Colts, coming up in just a few minutes here. They had the schedule release yesterday in the NFL. One nationally televised game at night, San Francisco on the 22nd of December. That'll be 8:15 Monday Night Football. Of course, they have the overseas game at Berlin on the 9th of November. But a few more 4 o'clock games than normal.
Yeah. Question for you all. If you had to pick one home game to go to, non-division opponent, who would it be?
Gosh, it's such a bad home schedule.
That's kind of why I asked.
Probably the Monday night game against San Francisco, isn't it?
What about one of those first two right
Fair
out of the
enough.
gate? I mean, Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle.
Am I crazy for saying the Raiders? I kind of want to see what they do with Ashton Genty,
I will say this, though. I do like watching.
Brock Bowers. Nah, not moving you.
I do like watching Kyler Murray play. He's fun to watch. I enjoy watching him.
Yeah.
And I think it's the first time Kyler Murray will play in Lucas Oil Stadium. Which, he's been in the league for a long
Yeah.
time. Obviously, when you play
Injuries and
NFC
stuff.
teams, you don't see them a whole lot there. What's that? That's like an October game, isn't it?
Yeah,
Arizona.
October 12th.
If you want to really nerd out over the schedule, you get Arizona and the Raiders both in your own building, 10 a.m. local time for those teams. Both of those games are at 1 o'clock. So if you believe, and some of the crazy degenerates out there believe in that a whole lot. If you get the West Coast team playing 10 a.m. local time,
What
that
just
is
happened? You
that is
okay?
advantage Colts.
I felt like I was being spoken to right there. I don't know, Kevin.
I feel like you're like a sneaky degenerate. Like I could have seen you in the Parlor public parking lot yesterday.
I will say, I mean, do you hate the 10 a.m.? Because we'll have like that for our local market because of the 9:30 tip, and I know people are, or kickoff, and people are kind of like, I'm not feeling that. So I don't know.
All right, let's ask our next guest what he's looking forward to. I know the entire season. Matt Taylor is a play-by-play voice of the Indianapolis Colts, good friend of ours here at the station, good friend of all of ours personally. He joins us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. Good Thursday morning, Matt Taylor. How you doing?
What's happening, guys? Good to be with you.
It's outstanding to hear your voice and your initial thoughts on the schedule that came out last night for the Colts.
Yeah, I think it's a good schedule. I think it's a deceptively tough schedule. Honestly, when I look back at it, you've got the front part of the schedule where you've got 4 of the first 6 games at home, but there's a large chunk there in the middle of the season where you're going to play 5 out of 6 away from Lucas Oil Stadium there in the middle of the season. I think there's like a 35-day stretch where you go without playing in front of your true home fan base at Lucas Oil Stadium. I know one of those weeks is in Berlin, one of those weeks is a bye, but still that's a long time between true home games at Lucas Oil Stadium. But, outside of that, you look at, the last stretch there after the bye. First off, the bye being where it is way more favorable, I think, for the Colts compared to where it has been in the past. A week 11 bye, in mid-November is so much better for so many different reasons compared to a mid-December bye. But you come back after that bye week in week 12, and you got to go Kansas City, Houston, Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville again, and then at Houston. That's a tough schedule. 4 of your last 7 games are on the road, and that's quarterback city right there. I mean, say what you want about Trevor Lawrence. I still think he's a upper half quarterback. So your final 7 games of the season are going to be against, what I'm saying are established, franchise quarterbacks, and that's a tough way to end the season. So got to get off to a good start. That goes without saying. But I also do like the fact that the AFC South games are backloaded this year as compared to the recent past, where seemingly seems like you're always done playing at least one key AFC South series before Halloween. I like the fact that the last half of the season is going to be littered with division games, and I think those are going to feel like playoff games and elimination games based on the math towards the end of the season.
I'll go here, Matt. When you look at the schedule, I know you mentioned towards the end just how crucial that stretch will be, but can you explain, maybe for the listeners, even for myself, because I'm curious as well, why an earlier bye week it might be more beneficial than what they've had in years past?
Well, I just think, from a player standpoint, I mean, think about it, fellas. You go from, you report for training camp in late July, and you really don't get, if you have a mid-December bye week, you don't get a full extended period of time off from late July until the middle of December. And last year, too, keep in mind, the Colts didn't play on Thursday night either, so they didn't get the experience of the mini bye, sort of that long weekend feel either. So that's just a long time to go and to put your body through what it goes through on a week-to-week basis without an extended period of time off. And by that, I just mean, 4 or 5 days where you can just kind of sit and decompress and maybe take a short trip, or just not have to put your body through what it has to go through on a weekly basis in practice and gear up for games. So, and also selfishly, the weather is, I think, a little bit more decent in mid-November than it is in mid-December. So maybe these guys can get out, actually do something, maybe go back to a college football game, or if you're like me, you can go out and do something and enjoy a little bit of a last glimpse of decent weather in mid-November compared to mid-December. So it's going to be well earned, that bye, because you're going to have back-to-back long road trips, if you will. I guess Pittsburgh's not a long road trip, but it is still a road trip. And then you have to go to Berlin, and then after the Germany game, you're going to get some time off. So those are the big things that I look for. Are the Colts going to be home around Thanksgiving? Are they going to be home around Christmas? And where is that bye week for the play-by-play guy?
Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. He is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Matt, honestly, one of the things that struck me about the schedule is the first 2 weeks. And I would say that even if the Colts didn't have the week 1 drought dating back to 2013, I mean, if you want to play out potential playoff situations, I think we expect Kansas City to probably win the AFC West. Okay, that means Denver week 2 will be a wild card team. If you expect Buffalo to win the AFC East, that means Miami week 1 could be a wild card team. Well, if Houston continues to win the South, the Colts would be a potential wild card team. The fact that you've got 2 teams that I think are very similar to you in how others view them right out of the gate, Miami week 1, Denver week 2 in your own building. Again, even if you didn't have the long, 11, 12-year week 1 drought, I think that is a big, big 2 games that we might not think about it here on May 15th, but come December 15th, oh boy, those games could look a whole lot different with the standings.
And isn't that the beauty of the NFL? All of these games come down to the last 4 minutes. They all come down to the wire. The Colts last year played 13 games that were decided by 1 score, and they won 8 of them. But it's amazing how, you look at, like you said, a week 1 or week 2 game. Well, there's still a lot of the season left. It's not a make or break. But, I mean, the magnitude of all of these games is so important. And I think that's what makes the NFL so special, is that all of these games hold so much weight. It doesn't matter when you play them. They all count the same. You go back to week 2 last year. You play on the road against the Green Bay Packers, and that's just one of many games that kind of sticks out in my memory. If the Colts play more consistent, more clean football in that game, who knows? Maybe they make the playoffs, with a win like that. They lost 16-10. Gave up a boatload of rushing yards, had some inconsistencies at the quarterback position that game, and they were still right there with a chance to win. So, without question, Miami is a team that's looking to rebound last year after going 8-9. Denver made the playoffs. They were 10-7 a year ago. And they think they have some quarterback stability. But like you said, there's some roadblocks in front of them based on the divisions that they're in. So those games are going to be enormous in order for the Colts, to win those games, to help them as far as a wild card potential is concerned. And also, too, they're just AFC matchups, and that's the tiebreaker when you get down to the nitty-gritty towards the end of the season. What is your record against common opponents? What is your record within the conference? So, yes, without question, those 2 games to start the season, they're home games. I think they're winnable on paper. We're going to see what the Colts quarterback situation looks like. But those are 2 hugely important games right out of the gate at home against teams that are going to be I think on paper in a similar situation for what you're trying to accomplish throughout the course of the season.
James, maybe you can answer this, but and I don't know, Matt, if you've got any insight, feel free to chime in. I'm seeing one home preseason game. That's the Packers on August 16th. That's a Saturday afternoon. Are we assuming that means joint practices the 13th and 14th at Grand Park? Isn't that typically how the Colts operate with that home preseason game?
In the past, that's how they've done it. Well, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
They've tried to do that without question. I haven't heard one way or another, solidified if that's what's going to happen. But, I think how many consecutive years are we now on with the Colts doing at least one joint practice?
Yeah, seems like every year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, last year they tried to do one in Cincinnati or did do one in Cincinnati, and that was a Thursday night game for the Colts. So they went early and practiced on Tuesday. This year, they're going to wrap up the preseason with Cincinnati on a Saturday, so perhaps they go down early and maybe do a joint practice down there on a Thursday before that last game. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that are still up in the air. We know when those games are going to be. We just don't know for sure if we're going to have joint practices. But I got a hunch that you're going to see at least one joint practice out of those three matchups with either Baltimore, Green Bay, or Cincinnati. I think that's safe to say.
Matt, always good to talk to you. Thanks for spending time with us on a morning shift here on a Thursday, off season. Thank you.
All right, boys. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.
There he is, the voice of the Indianapolis Colts, Matt Taylor. You bring up a good question there, and there's one of the things I was going to talk to Matt about too. But I think those are key opportunities when you have those joint practices.
Well, if you're going to have a quarterback competition too, you would think those would be big evaluation points. So they have a Thursday road preseason game. That is the 7th. So I don't know if they'd go to Baltimore early for that and do joint practices with the Ravens. Obviously, there's some, common people on those staffs. So that will be something to keep an eye on. But yeah, if they follow the typical script, James, you would think they would do the Green Bay joints. And I guess they could do the Cincinnati thing from last year, right? They've got Cincinnati. That is the final preseason game on the road. So it's a home preseason game the 16th, road preseason games the 7th and 23rd. They could do Cincinnati joint practices right before that. So nothing official on that, but just some things to keep an eye on.
All right, quick timeout. We'll discuss more about the Colts schedule release coming from the NFL last night. Get you ready to go for whoever we're going to play in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference. What we know so far for the Pacers as we continue next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Do not adjust your radios. It is the most wonderful time of year in Indianapolis. We will have Pacers and Racers on race day for the Indianapolis 500. You'll have the race all day long. You'll have the Pacers and whoever at home at Gainbridge Fieldhouse beginning at 8 p.m. that night. Good day to be a sports fan in Indianapolis. Just good day to be in Indianapolis, period. Kevin Bowen. That's how you do it.
I'd argue great time to be in the Circle City and this great state. I think that was a good result last night as well, with the Celtics pushing it to at least a Game 6. Just to remind everybody, if this goes to a 7th game, these two teams will play tomorrow in New York. Of course, the Knicks are up 3-2. If it goes to a 7th game, we'll have Game 7 on Monday. So that will be a extra day in that series, which would mean either the Knicks or the Celtics would be playing the Pacers in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in less than 48 hours after Game 7. So that is mega advantage to the Indiana Pacers. So we know Game 1 will be coming up on Wednesday. But I thought last night, even if you, for some reason, would rather see the Knicks than the Celtics, just the extension of that series and the potential for it now to go to a 7th game, I think is huge.
Not only that, if the Knicks end up winning a Game 7, they have to turn around and travel again. It's not a long flight from New York to Boston, but it's just one more thing.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, the New York to Boston flight is what?
Every little pebble helps.
40 minutes?
Yeah, every little pebble helps, though, man. Still a pain in the butt. You gotta.
Yeah.
It's just one more little extra step. So we'll see how things work out there. Quick note: they're underway at Quail Hollow down at the PGA in Charlotte. Ryan Fox, your early leader, right now at 3 under par through 6. A host of other golfers at 1 under par, including Rory McIlroy, who birdied the first hole, Kevin. So off to a good start.
Yes, very early down there, but Rory's got rich history at Quail Hollow. Long hitters golf course with a lot of rain. So our second major of the year underway. Shout out to the local guys, along with, of course, Patrick Rogers, longtime PGA Pro, a couple club pros. Eric Steger from Pebblebrook, Timothy Wiseman from down south, a couple Ball State products. Eric Steger, the Noblesville legend there. So some local flavor here in the second major of the year.
JB, ever had the chance to cover a professional golf event?
No, I don't know much about golf to do that at a high level. The last time I covered golf was, I want to say it might have been girls, like sectionals or regionals, and it was a good time, but again, it was very much, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I know who won, though, and going from there. So, I have a lot of respect for it, though. And as I told you all during the Masters, I read a bunch of stuff about it. I actually have a piece saved to my athletic app to read about, Rory and kind of like the new chase now, which is just what's left, what else you want to do after you've accomplished pretty much all you can do. So, I'm enjoying learning more about the mental side of golf, and just, it's hard, man. Everything I read about it, I'm like, how do you all find joy in this sport? It seems like it just escapes you.
This is how it works. You go out and have a terrible round, and then you birdie 18, and you're like, that's what I love about this game. I can't wait to come back tomorrow.
I respect you all.
Pulls you back in.
Every single time. Kevin, I'm guessing you spent some time over at the golf course here at Crooked Stick when they've had PGA tournaments, or even the PGA itself. You weren't around for the first PGA, right?
I was 2 years old in 1991. So
you were here a couple years ago.
Can't say I was out there for John Daly's triumph there. But yes, the BMWs been out there. Obviously a great time. Crooked Stick is a hell of a course. I think it's reopening here pretty soon after shutting down. So we'll see if another big-time tournament can be up there. And, of course, we've got the Live Tour, right, at Chatham coming up here. Those ticket prices, whew. Came across those the other day. So, Live Golf in what is that, mid-August? I wonder if that'll have any overlap with training camp, seemingly, 1,000 yards away from Grand Park, a little bit more than that.
Might be able to get you on that course during the week. Go play.
To play Chatham?
Yeah.
Well, that'd be great.
All right, I'll check that. Good to know. It's good to know.
All right.
Other than that, we get ready for whatever comes next for the Indiana Pacers. Did you take anything from either of those two teams watching the game last night, Celtics and Knicks?
I mean, certainly Boston, and it sounds so elementary, but, I mean, they can still shoot the three really, really well. And, Peyton Pritchard played a ton of minutes last night and was very effective.
Sixth man of the year.
Yeah, so, does he have this is not a Ty Jerome experience. I think Peyton Pritchard's, been there, done that, even when they've asked him here in the playoffs. So, we'll see if it translates on the road. And one thing about the Knicks, I just think they lack firepower. I mean, they're a very good team, but they lack the ability to run away from you. They needed to grind it out. And I just, if it is Pacers Knicks, I think the Pacers have a great advantage over them in the lack of ball handling, the lack of depth. Certainly they've got some things that are impressive, but I weirdly think the Knicks are more built to beat Boston than they are Indiana.
I think they were built specifically to beat Boston, weren't they?
That was the attempt.
Yeah.
And, I know that might not make a ton of sense, but I would if it's the Knicks, I'd expect the Pacers to win it in 5 or 6.
Well, it'll. We just kind of hope that they keep having to play while we sit and get healthy. I know the Pacers are relatively healthy, but this time of year, any extra rest, anything you can do to get close to 100% after a long season, always ideal, James Boyd.
Absolutely. I mean, you're most likely going into the next series against a team that had to fight, scratch, and claw their way into that round, and so you can probably catch them, especially in that first game, maybe kind of feeling the effects of getting through the last round. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but the Pacers are certainly in good shape, and they took care of business.
Pat Boylan, who you hear on the pregame before every Pacers contest right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, is going to stop by in just a moment here. He'll also tell us about the Fever getting ready to tip off their regular season on Saturday over at the Fieldhouse. It's all next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Little twist to Pacers and Racers. I was just listening to that little liner there. And the Fever get their season started on Saturday. That'll be on 93 WIBC because we'll be doing quals all day long here at the Fan. We're looking forward to that. And certainly a person who knows all about both those things and the Pacers particularly, joining us now on the Payless Liquors hotline as we start the 9 o'clock hour, our good friend Pat Boylan on the phone today. Good morning, Pat Boylan. You're going to be a busy guy for the next couple of weeks, huh? And that's a good thing.
Always good to be this busy, guys. Appreciate you having me here. Whenever the Pacers season is running into the Fever season, it goes without saying it's been a good year for the Pacers, and hopefully maybe we'll be talking in October about the Fever season running into the Pacers season. But yeah, for now, both teams playing at the same time, a very good thing, and really looking forward to the Eastern Conference Finals and having Pacers and Racers back in this city.
That's great. Pat Boylan on the Payless Liquors hotline. Pat, I was listening to you driving home from Game 4, and there's many stats you could throw out about the Pacers right now that I think are impressive. One that pertains particularly to the playoffs I was struck by, you shared with us on Sunday night, and I think I have this correct. The last 10 times the Pacers have lost by double digits, they've responded with a win every single time. Like, of all the stats right now from the Pacers, and I don't know, might even be more than 10, I feel like that is one of the most impressive ones, and I think should give Pacers fans continued reassurance of if that is, one of those games pops up again, they have been able to bounce back quite emphatically.
Yeah, I think it kind of is a microcosm of their season. You go back to early December, the Pacers were 10-15, and that's actually right around the last time also that they had a double-digit loss where they didn't respond to it with a win. So you have to go back to the very beginning of the season, in fact, to find the last time that happened when the Pacers lost by double digits. They didn't follow it up with a win. It's just this team has been so resilient this year, and there are numerous ways of quantifying that. I mean, you can look in the playoffs itself. Indiana is 3-2 in the playoffs this year when they trailed by 19 or more. I mean, that's kind of a crazy stat too. Now, that's half of the playoff games. So that's certainly not a recipe of what you want to do here in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they have clearly shown that in game when they get down big, but then also when they haven't responded and won that game and dropped a double-digit game, that they've been very good in that follow-up game. So to me, resiliency has been the word that has really defined this team all season. And you can go back to the 10-15 start. I mean, back then, the Pacers were in 11th place in the Eastern Conference. If you would have just stopped the season, then they wouldn't have even made the play-in tournament. And they're 48-19 since. That's a winning percentage of a team that wins almost 60 games over the course of 82. And we're talking about 67 games there. So it's a large sample size. This team's been playing extremely well, since that 10-15 start. And the resiliency, I think, is a big reason for it. Tyrese was asked a little bit about that. I thought he gave a good answer just talking about Carlisle and the film sessions they have. He called him a savant. The adjustments they make are really good. And I think that's also a good point here. It's just, and this is the nature of coaching, and I know I don't need to tell this to you guys who have him on your show, but a coaching staff like the one that the Pacers have, I think sometimes doesn't get enough credit. Typically when teams win, you credit the players, and then when they lose, you start looking at the coaches for maybe not making the right adjustments or not having the right guys out there. But when you consider, here's another great nugget, the Pacers have made back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, and in neither year were they a top 3 seed. And that's never been done before, a team making back-to-back conference finals without being a top 3 seed. So I think you look at the coaching staff and what they've done, and I think that's a pretty undertold story of just how good the coaching staff has been as well.
Well, speaking of Rick Carlisle, Pat, I made a drug deal yesterday. So if you need the Plot Rickens T-shirt, I'm currently rocking it right now. The YouTube chat has seen. I did take off my other shirt this morning. Apologize to our producer Kylan for having to see that, but
and apologize to me too.
Yeah,
well,
why just Kylan?
You guys see the.
I had to sit next to you.
You guys see me on a daily basis. Kylan does not. So I say all that to say, Pat Boylan, I know a guy if you need a Plot Rickens T-shirt.
There might be a day where I'm hopeful to need a Plot Rickens T-shirt.
Okay.
But that is, in my opinion, one of the best fan-made pieces of apparel I've ever seen. I'm a big fan.
Do we think Rick Carlisle would appreciate a $30 purchase of the Plot Rickens t-shirt? I thought about sending him said t-shirt, but James has told me to hold back.
Hey, I'll maybe I'll get on the wait list for one of those.
Pat, I'll pivot a little bit, and I guess on a more serious note, but I don't even know if it's all that serious. I have made the joke on social media that Thomas Bryant is my favorite pacer because he's the funniest pacer. And I say that because he plays so hard, he's so expressive, and I think that people can kind of see how much it means to him. So you've had more interactions with him than I have in the general public. So what's your impression of Thomas Bryant and what he seriously means to this team as their backup center?
Expressive is a really good word to describe him. You know, he wears his emotions on his sleeve. Sometimes that can work against him, but it's why he's here. It's why he's in the NBA. It's why he's such a good player. I mean, I think it just fuels him in a positive way and allows him to be the type of player that he is. You know, if you think about where this Pacers team was at the beginning of the season, too, to kind of bring that theme back, they had those two Achilles tears really early from their two second and third string centers, James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson. And they were really trying to find themselves at the backup center position. They tried a few different guys, and no discredit to anybody that they brought in, but it's such a hard thing to do mid-season unless you can make a major trade, which the Pacers didn't want to do, to find a quality player at that backup center position. They're not just sitting there oftentimes in the G League or on, you know, the free agency wire. And that trade, even though it was not a blockbuster deal, it didn't have people, you know, going crazy on Twitter or anything like that, was, I think, an underrated move in terms of one of the aspects that got this season in the direction that it did. There are many reasons you can look for that, and you probably look at Tyrese Halliburton turning his year around, getting Nesmith and Nembhard back at the top of that list. But I think Thomas Bryant, that acquisition and what he's meant to this team, is certainly high on the list as well, because they were searching for a little bit there, and then it all kind of got settled once they brought Bryant in. And so I actually think the minutes that he gives is a pretty significant playoff X factor, if you will. If they're able to get, you know, 10 really strong minutes out of him within that second unit with the second rotation, the Pacers tend to play pretty well when that's been the case. So I absolutely agree with you. I think he's been a really interesting story and an important story for this 2024-25 Pacers season. And as you have noted, and those who followed him at IU knew this probably before I did, but he's a really good guy. He's very genuine. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's an easy guy to root for.
Pat Boylan, Indiana Pacers broadcaster, Indiana Fever broadcaster, great broadcaster of all things around Indiana, joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. One of my favorite things about this Pacers team, and I want you to comment on this further and give me some more background on it, just how deep and rotational they truly are. They share the ball at an incredibly high pace. I mentioned the other day that in the postseason, they're sharing it and assisting on more buckets than any team since the 2018 Golden State Warriors, who we all lauded for playing the game the right way. But do you realize, Pat, the Pacers are the first team in NBA history to have a different leading scorer in every game of at least a 5-game series win in the postseason this year?
That's a really good one. That's one I didn't know, and I'm going to be writing down for my own use. But that is kind of, you know, a summation of what this team has been, is that, look, in the NBA, your stars are vitally important, and Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam are vitally important for this team. But they are – I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, I can't remember an NBA team that you would have said had this depth or this type of quality, 1 through 7 or 8, that's been a contender at this level. I can't remember one recently. The NBA formula has just, you know, it's always been, you got to have those superstars at the top, and then you just hope to have enough depth. And that's not to say that the Pacers are the best team in the league or over that time frame, but in terms of just how many good players that they have that are capable of having the type of night that's necessary to win a playoff game, I think is really notable. And we've seen, you know, when Halliburton hasn't had a good game, other players have stepped up. Pascal Siakam has had an off night or two, but other guys have stepped up. Nesmith and Nembhard have been so solid, and I think those two have really risen the ceiling for this team. And then you just look at, from a ball movement perspective, which you were touching on there too, the Pacers have a 3-7 assist game. That's the most in the playoffs this year. There have been 11 30 assist games in the playoffs. The Pacers have 5 of them, so nearly half of the league's 30 assist games have been Indiana's here in the playoffs. The Pacers had easily the best offensive rating in the NBA in round 2, or have it so far, round 2 not being over. But their defense has been really solid too. You know, I thought one of the more noteworthy statistics was that Cleveland shot just 29% from the three-point line in that series. And this is a team that has shooters all over the floor. I mean, really, besides Jared Allen, every single one of those guys is not just capable from three, but a good three-point shooter. And the Pacers, I think that goes into their depth as well. I mean, it's game planning and it's all of that, but it's also having guys that you can bring in and out that are going to defend. And it's just amazing that we're talking about that storyline, because at times this team the last 2 years has really struggled defensively. But one of the biggest stories with last year's team was that they got it together defensively enough to make that run in the playoffs last year. And this year's defensive team is even better, and it's something that they're hanging their hat on. And I think that plays into the depth as well. And that's also, I think, a significant part of the Cleveland series that I found interesting was the Pacers won that series, and going into it, I think a lot of people might have even suggested that the Cavs had better depth. You know, they have a couple of Sixth Man of the Year candidates, and their 1 through 5 is really good, and Sam Merrill, and you know, they go 8-9 deep, and part of the reason they won 64 games was their depth too. And yet, I mean, how often were we talking about at the end of games the quote unquote, it almost became a little cliche, the wear down effect, and what the Pacers were able to do there. And you know, from a conditioning perspective, I think that comes into play as well. So I think you look at this other series, Boston and New York, and if you're a Pacers fan, you're hoping it's going 7. And then whoever they get, you know, you're kind of hoping to ride that similar formula of numerous players playing double-digit minutes, and hopefully in the fourth quarter you're able to have some similar success. Chris Denary had a great stat, which is the Pacers have won 14 of their last 15 clutch games. Those are games within 5 points in the last 5 minutes. Now, some of that is good execution down the stretch, of course, but some of it, too, is just being the fresher team. I mean, in the NBA, you can't win 14 out of 15 close games without having a lot go your way. And the freshness of this team and the conditioning of this team has been really remarkable to watch. And actually, candidly, I was a little surprised just how big of a factor it was against Cleveland, because I would have thought that would have been a strength of theirs as well. But it seemed like every single game, you know, obviously save game 3, that those moments were necessary down the stretch. The Pacers easily looked like the fresher group and the more confident group.
Yeah, could not agree more. Pacers look like Cole Hawker running a mile, and the Cavs look like me running a mile, frankly, when how it all unfolded. All right, let's shift gears. Pat Boylan, voice of the Fever, with us here. Payless Liquors hotline. Heavy home schedule here. 5 of the first 7 at home for the Fever. They'll get things started Saturday afternoon. Pat, if our fans out there have been living under a rock, a lot has changed, frankly, for the Fever since last season. Could you kind of fill us in a little bit, Cliff Notes version, on how different this squad is going to be?
Including, as you were just touching upon at the beginning of this segment, we have Fever on the radio back, which I'm thrilled to have. John Nolan and Bria Goss, and they'll do a great job, and Eddie Garrison, the producer there. It's great to have the Fever back on the radio. And look, it's just amazing, Kevin, you know, the just difference in 1 year between where we were at this time last year and where we are at this time this year. And it's also funny because I remember saying that last year too. We've had a lot of 1 year differences, but really just the expectations with this team. I mean, last year there was so much excitement for the Caitlin Clark era to tip off, and rightfully so. But it wasn't a whole lot of, is this team ready to contend? And there's no question this team now is in a position to contend. You ask any of the players, which we did in a station on Media Day, about what you think this team's capable of accomplishing, and almost every single one was not afraid to immediately say a championship. And look, New York won a championship last year. They're an extremely loaded roster. You know, they almost remind me a little bit of the Golden State Warriors in that 16, 17, 18 time frame. I mean, that's a really good team. So it's not to suggest necessarily that the Fever, you know, are the favorites, but the front office has transformed this team in the offseason into a position where contention is a real viable goal. And DeWanna Bonner has come in. She's played in more playoff games than anybody in the history of the league. She's won a couple championships. Natasha Howard has won 3. Those 2 players, I think, immediately were the 2 that once those signings happened, you said, okay, maybe something really special is capable of the Fever are capable of this season, because they've won championships. They've been all-stars, and you look at the Fever starting 5 now, and each of those 5 players have played in an all-star game before. But then also, if you remember last year's team, they had a pretty good starting 5, but one of their challenges was they just didn't have a ton of depth. So obviously bringing in a couple good starters is really key to that. But they bring in, Sophie Cunningham, who's already made a lot of headlines since she's been here. I mean, it's already safe to say she's going to be a fan favorite, but also really impactful on the floor. When you bring in a couple players like that, Lexi Hull potentially comes off the bench now, which gives you better bench depth. They brought in Sydney Colson too. So they've really attacked this from so many different facets, and the amount of talent on this roster right now is really an exciting thing. I mean, the other aspect that you talked about is that it's a home-heavy early schedule. So the dynamic last year was they had this brutal schedule right out of the gates, and once they got through it, they were kind of able to dig themselves out of that hole. Well, I think the hope here is you hit the ground running with all of these home games to begin the year, and not your toughest stretch of schedule from opponent, win percentage either. And if they can hit the ground running, I think you could see a pretty special season here in Indianapolis.
Last one from me, Pat, a little bit on the injury side. What can you tell us about Caitlin? I know she's dealing with the leg tightness throughout the preseason, as well as Sophie Cunningham. I believe it's an ankle for her. And lastly, Kelsey Mitchell, who I believe fractured her finger over in China and might have to just play through it this season.
Yeah, and Kelsey's been somebody, just starting with her, that has been just an iron woman. I mean, I think she's missed 6 games over the course of her entire pro career. So she's somebody that typically you don't see on that injury report, and I think that is something that she probably just has to play through a little bit, maybe at the beginning of the year, affecting her a little bit more than she would like. But
shooting hand?
At the end of the day, I think she will be okay. The Caitlin Clark injury, it's interesting because each time Stephanie White talks about her, she talks about thinking big picture and just making sure they're being smart. And to me, that says, we got a 44-game season here coming up. This isn't something that, if it were a playoff game, might keep her out. But at the same time, you just have to be smart with this, because obviously she is one of, if not your most important players. I mean, she finished 4th last year in the MVP voting. So clearly, her impact on the floor is vital. So I tend to think that's the Fever being, as they should, quite cautious with her. And of the 3, as it relates to the opener, Cunningham does seem to be the one that might come into play the most, but they're far from ruling her out. Stephanie White said yesterday that she was hopeful, but that she would need the next couple of days to know to get there. She had that injury in the final preseason game. So a few injuries to monitor here in the preseason, which isn't always ideal, but I think the good news is none of them are expected to be long-term issues, and the Fever are just being cautious, as they should at this stage of the year.
Just one real quick follow-up, and I'm sorry I cut you off, but is it shooting hand for Kelsey Mitchell, I believe?
You know what? That's actually a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it was something, as you noted, I believe that she said happened over in China, and she just hasn't dealt with so many injuries. She just hasn't dealt with injuries over the course of her career, so it's so odd to see her even talking about it. But that I look back at that first preseason game, she was definitely shaking off some rust and maybe working a little bit of that off. Maybe I'm being a little overly optimistic here. I don't think it's going to be something that is overly challenging for her, but a good reason to have the preseason, right, is if that's not 100% for her to try to work through those things.
Pat Boylan, always good to talk to you. Have a great season, what's left of the Pacers and what's ahead for the Fever. We will see you at the Fieldhouse, and we'll talk to you soon.
Gentlemen, appreciate you having me.
Thanks,
All right.
Pat.
Thanks very much. And, of course, the Fever start this particular week at 2:45 with the pregame hosted by Eddie Garrison on 93 WIBC. And a little radio station nerdy trivia, the first ever producer for a Fever radio broadcast for us here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is Kylan Talley. Right there.
Look
right
at
across
that.
the way.
Thank you.
Did a fantastic job.
If
Sounded
the Fever won it
flawless.
all, Kylan should get a ring.
I think so.
I'll
I
have,
think that's
my
it.
people talk to her people, and we'll get it all set. I'll call Tamika and get it all squared away.
Having said that, Kylan, can we check it down? Just got done talking to Pat Boylan of the Pacers Radio Network about what's ahead for Indiana, and they are waiting on the winner of the New York-Boston series. Boston keeps it alive, KB, last night with a pretty dominant victory at home over the Knicks without Jason Tatum, 127-102. What'd you think?
Yeah, it's a very dominant second half, especially. Bench guys played well. Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, they're not replacing Jason Tatum, but their roles will expand. I thought both those guys, Derek White, very good. Jaylen Brown, really good as well. So we'll see if that magic can continue. Again, MSG coming up tomorrow night. The Knicks can close it out. If it goes to a Game 7, that wouldn't be till Monday. So that would be music to the ears of the Indiana Pacers. We do know the Eastern Conference Finals, no matter what, will start on Wednesday. That became official last night. But again, if that series goes to a Game 7, a quick turnaround for either of those teams. Yes, the Pacers would be on the road, but very quick turnaround for Boston or New York.
And JB, that means 8 p.m. tip time for all of the Eastern Conference games that the Pacers will be playing. And, of course, on race day, that means it should stay safely out of the way of any conflict with the Indianapolis 500.
Let's knock on some wood here. Hope that's the case. And for these 8 p.m. tip-offs, Jeff, keep your phone on ring. I'll be calling you to make sure we make it through.
I think I'll be okay on this one.
Gotcha.
We'll
Okay.
be okay on this one.
And just a quick update, I was able to find it. Kelsey Mitchell, it's her shooting hand middle finger
Ouch.
that she fractured.
Ouch.
Shout out to Chloe Peterson from Indy Star for reporting that. And
The lefty.
yes,
Kelsey Mitchell.
and she is she's a trooper though, so I expect what Pat Boylan said to hold true.
All right. Described her as a bit of an iron woman. So
Hey,
she shows up every
she
night.
does.
We like that. And when she shows up, she shows up.
Yeah, she gets buckets. She's one of the best scorers on earth.
Minnesota Timberwolves eliminated the Golden State Warriors from the Western Conference last night, 121-110, the final score there. And Julius Randle, guys, just continues to impress in this postseason.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see a player at this stage of their career take their game to another level because usually they kind of plateau at this point. He's been in the league for a while. I mean, this is a guy who played with Kobe. So obviously to see him have the success he's had is pretty cool. And, they're moving on, and no sympathy for not facing Steph Curry, but certainly his absence was a factor.
Minnesota's got some interesting pieces. When you look at Randall, Gobert, it seems like people are so up and down on him. I think a lot of that has to do with the trade. Jaden McDaniels is a tremendous defender, bringing a lot of length. DiVincenzo off the bench. We don't need to remind anybody in this market what he can do after that series against the Pacers last season. So, yeah, I mean, I would assume in Minnesota right now, the Fighting Michael Grady's are saying the same thing we kind of are saying here. Like, this is a team that was in the Western Conference Finals last year, and they could easily, I think, make it and even win it all. And obviously Anthony Edwards is certainly a future star, if not a star already.
All right, the Nuggets host the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight in Game 6 of that series. Oklahoma City up 3-2. Nuggets trying to stay alive. Cardinals split a doubleheader with the Philadelphia Phillies yesterday. Cubs lost at home to the Miami Marlins, and the Reds lose to the Chicago White Sox for the second day in a row. Later on this morning, 11:05, Louisville visits the Indianapolis Indians, and there'll be cars on the track today, Kevin.
Yes, Tony Kanaan will be the first car on the track, weather permitting. His refresher, Tony Kanaan, will join us here coming up tomorrow. And again, he is a backup driver for Kyle Larson if needed, weather permitting, of course. But yes, cars on the track, all 34 of them. A lot of Penske, a lot of Ganassi flavor atop the speed charts yesterday. Shout out to Noblesville's own Connor Daly. He was in the top 10 yesterday, as he has certainly had some great history there on his home track, if you will. But yes, should be a busy and hot day over at IMS. And tomorrow, throw a little boost action in there and get ready for quals coming up this weekend. Fast Friday will be tomorrow.
You're heading over there today, right?
I am.
Check it out.
Yes, yep.
That'd be
Looking forward to
cool. All right, and as you mentioned, we've got James Henchcliffe coming up next to tell us about what he sees ahead for the next 10 days or so. Can you believe we're 10 days away from the Indianapolis 500, man? And the Pacers are still doing their thing. Gotta love it here. We'll talk about it next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. That was back in 2016. The poll for our next guest, joining us now, working with Fox Sports and broadcasting the series. It's James Hinchcliffe here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan, the Payless Liquors hotline. What's that make you feel when you go back to listening to that, James Hinchcliffe? And first of all, good morning and thanks for being here. But how does it feel when you hear that back?
Yeah, morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. Obviously incredible. You know, what an amazing day for the whole team coming back after what happened the year before and managing to put it on pole for the 500. You know, qualifying here is so special for these teams and for these drivers, and to be the fastest of the 33 is definitely a very special feeling.
James, thanks for the time. Obviously, your story and what happened the year before the crash and then to get on pole kind of speaks for itself. So I don't know, maybe your emotions felt even more different, but I'm always kind of amazed when you hear drivers describe the feeling during qualifying of like, no, you don't understand. Going all out for 4 laps is a different feeling than even the race. Could you kind of explain to our audience out there, you know, what qualifying is like?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to explain honestly without getting the chance to do it. You know, with the way these cars are designed and the way you find speed in them in qualifying, you have to have the car on the absolute limit of grip. You are essentially white knuckling the thing for 4 laps, 10 miles. It's the fastest you're going to go all month. It's the fastest you're going to go all year. And the car's never more on edge, and there's so much on the line, you know, and any mistake or any issue can have huge consequences. So for every driver, you know, one of the most tense moments is sitting in the car in the qualifying lineup, waiting for your shot to go. And, you know, once you're out on track, usually, you know, drivers will talk about how once the green flag drops, you know, any feelings or emotions kind of get locked away, you know, in a race situation. But for some reason in qualifying, it doesn't happen the same way. And you're still very aware of the nerves. You're still very aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's the scariest but the most exhilarating thing that IndyCar drivers do all year.
You talk about locking that stuff down, but the first time you get back in the car after you've had a crash like you had, like how do you lock that away all of a sudden? What are the first few moments like when you go from, man, the last time I was in here it didn't go well, and now I got to get back to business?
Yeah, well, you know, I like making the joke that that drivers aren't wired correctly. You know, we lack the self-preservation gene that most human beings have. And what motivates us to get up in the morning is driving race cars. And so there's never a doubt in a driver's mind after an accident about, you know, whether or not they want to get back in the car. It's just a matter of when the doctors will let them. And, you know, I remember my first time getting back in, there was no fear, there was no hesitation. You know, there was maybe a little bit of anxiety, hoping that you still had it, right? I mean, you wanted to do it, but maybe your brain would shut something off that wouldn't let you drive to 100%. But again, our brains aren't wired normally, and so luckily that part usually gets shut off too, and you get back behind the wheel and kind of like riding a bike.
Again, we have James Hinchcliffe joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. James, from one James to another. My last name is Boyd. Not you know, getting any cars anytime soon like you have done in the past. But we were throwing this around on the radio earlier. What, in your mind, would be more impressive, Newgarden going for a 3-peat or Elio getting a 5th?
Man, that's a hard one to answer. I mean, you know, obviously the 3-peat's never been done, but to be the first guy to 5th, especially at 50 years old, you know, from first to last, that would be a pretty impressive milestone. And, you know, doing it with Meyer Shank, very capable team, but, you know, certainly not a Team Penske that's got 2,500s under the belt. So you got to think Elio being the first guy to 5 might pip it by a little bit.
That is the voice of James Hinchcliffe. Of course, you will hear him coming up here a week from Sunday. And I was listening to him yesterday on the practice call along with Townsend Bell and Will Buxton. And at one point yesterday, James, you were geeking out a little bit early in practice, kind of explaining to the audience the hybrid mechanism that is in the car here in 2025. It is a wrinkle in what will certainly, I think, have some impact and maybe a bit of an unknown here for a week from Sunday. So if you could dumb it down, because my brain certainly needed it, and I thought you did a great job yesterday, but could you explain to our audience what that is and exactly how you could see it impacting things, particularly late in the race coming up a week from Sunday?
Yeah, for sure. So the cars this year for the first time have a hybrid system that works in a lot of ways very similar to any hybrid road car, where when you are, you know, off throttle, which obviously you're not allowed at the speedway, It kind of charges up a battery pack that you can then hit a button and use as an extra boost of power. It's about 60 to 70 horsepower extra that the drivers get for about 4 seconds. But and that's each lap you get to do that. So there's
No. What happened? We lost him.
Oh, my
Maybe his
goodness.
boost went out.
Yeah. They ran out of energy right there.
Ran out a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll get him back.
Think about that extra 60 horsepower. That's a nice little bump there in the middle of the lap.
Yeah, but he was explaining it too. At some point, you have to regenerate through that lap, and so when do you use it? Do you use it? And we've seen these unbelievable finishes here in recent years. How will this impact it at all? James, I think we lost you there for just a second. If you want to pick up your train of thought there on the hybrid.
Yeah, sorry guys. So yeah, a cool tool. Like I said, you get about 60 to 70 horsepower for about 4 seconds. You can do that every lap, but there's no such thing as a free lunch in racing. And so yes, you get the benefit of the power, but to recharge, you actually draw a little bit of power away from the engine. So there's a lot of strategy as to how and when you recharge the system, and then how and when you deploy it and use that extra power. It's going to be a big story in qualifying. Obviously, we're talking about hundreds, sometimes thousandths of a mile an hour average difference for positions to be made or lost in qualifying. And then in the race, it's the first time everyone's going to have the chance to kind of explore what the best strategies are in different situations. And, we've seen last lap passes for the win the last 2 years here. That could play a big, big factor in the race on Sunday.
James, you're one of the guys that have driven both a Honda and a Chevy. What's the real difference between being in a car and those engines?
It's a great question. Both manufacturers have done such an amazing job since they started racing against each other in this current spec back in 2012. And I think, there are certainly different philosophies that the different manufacturers took when designing their engines that allowed them to have slightly different characteristics. I think what's widely understood to be true right now is that the Honda's a little bit better in the lower end, coming out of the corner, maybe a little bit better acceleration. But certainly the Chevy's been very strong on the top end with just peak horsepower. There's also differences in the ways that they go about tuning the engines for specific drivers. One maybe has a few more options and a few more tools for drivers to make them, a little more customized to their style than another. So some of it's process and procedure, and some of it's really just the architecture of the engine and where its real strengths lie.
James, I'll go here. You're talking to someone who didn't know that Carb Day was for carbonator. I thought it was for carbs until maybe about 2 months ago. So I'm learning as I go here. If you had to make maybe a short checklist for a first-time Indy 500 visitor, which I will be, what would you put on the list?
Well, I mean, you've got to make it out to Carb Day. Carb Day is my favorite day of the whole month. You've got that last 2 hours of practice. That's the final chance drivers and teams have to feel their car, make some changes, and then you lock it away for a few nights until the big race. There's concerts. There's a pit stop competition. There's actually a cool new thing happening at the Speedway on Carb Day that hasn't been announced yet that I can't say, but it's going to be pretty interesting and pretty funny. So you got to be there for that. And then honestly, race day is it's unlike anything you've ever seen. And that's my unbiased opinion. You can ask people that have been to lots of big events, be it, Super Bowls or Wimbledon's, Masters, World Series, you pick it. There's nothing quite like the 500, largest single day sporting event on earth. The pre-race ceremonies there are of incredibly emotional, moving, beautiful thing. Again, not like anything you see at any other sporting event. So honestly, man, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that you're getting to experience this for the first time, because there's nothing quite like your first time at the 500.
James, this is random. Are you still involved with Root and Bone, the restaurant?
Yes, sir.
It's a great spot.
In college.
Great spot.
Broad Ripple. Please, appreciate it. Please stop by anytime.
That's a great spot. We've had a couple of date nights there over the years. Okay, last one for me. And again, James Henchcliffe with us here, Payless Liquors Hotline. Lap 199. Do you want to be first or do you want to be second when you see the white flag?
I think, man, this is one of the toughest questions to answer, and this is something that every one of the 33 drivers who qualifies for this race is going to be wrestling with all Saturday night. At the end of the day, you look at the last 2 years, that pass happened on the last lap. So you'd want to say, in theory, you want to be running second, make that pass. but it's also always better to be the defender. And if a yellow were to come out on that last lap or the pass comes out, it's your race. So Tony Kanaan always used to kind of famously say, I don't care what lap, I don't care what phase of the race, what part of the stint, I want to be leading the 500. And that's partly how he won his race back in 13. Yellow flag came out while he was leading. So I still think at the end of the day, you want to be the car up front because you have a little bit more control of what happens behind you than the other way around.
Last quick random thing for me, too. You a big sports fan all the way around or just cars?
I mean, cars are my main focus, but I'm Canadian, so obviously I'm a hockey fan.
So what happened last night? That's my question.
I don't want to talk about it.
All right.
I don't want to talk about
All right.
it.
Tough
what
night.
happened, the Maple Leafs going to Maple Leaf. But look, it's not done, all right? It's not done. I know this is a little bit of a habit of ours, but it's not over. We're going to keep the faith. We're going to try to come back strong next game.
Man, that's a Townsend Bell move by Jeff there to James Henchcliffe. You can't be doing that. Come on now.
Look, I'm a fellow hockey fan. I know what it's like this time of year, man. And my team got bounced in the first round with the Avs losing to Dallas. There's nothing higher or lower than when your hockey team is winning or losing, man.
So true. And we started so strong in this series, and it's really just all come unglued. But like I said, it's not done. We're going to make that last lap pass for the win. That's what I'm predicting.
All right. We'll be listening for you and looking for you all month long. James, thanks so much for stopping by. You're welcome anytime.
Thanks, James.
Of course. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
And in honor of James Hinchcliffe, I think we've got some things to give away. Kylan, what do we have right here and right now?
Let's give away some Carb Day tickets.
Ooh, let's do that.
They're telling me in the YouTube chat it's
Carburetor.
So I'm learning again.
I was going to let that slide, but I figured that the YouTube chat.
Nah, don't let it slide. I mean, you got to learn these things around here.
All right, so pick a number between 1 and 8.
I'll go 1.
All right, fast fingers again.
Yeah.
Got to be fast. Just like you said, you want to be leading, right?
Yeah.
You want to be leading.
Make that last lap.
First caller, 239-1070. You got some tickets to Carb Day, and we've even got more tickets in the next segment, too. So how about that? And a Jiffy Lube Super Stat of the Day from Scotty Johnston. It's all next, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Everybody else, it's Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd. James Hinchcliffe was a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah,
I
I really enjoy him on the telecast. I think him and Townsend Bell, and again, this will be Will Buxton, the play-by-play guy, if you will, be his first ever Indy 500. We had him on right when that was announced as Fox's new play-by-play voice, so has brought some great energy, and very much looking forward to him on the first call there coming up. Again, cars on the track shortly. Tony Kanaan for the refresher. And then all 34 scheduled to be out there at noon. Weather looks to be much, much better today. Hot, but much better from a rain standpoint than we've had the first couple days. So hopefully we can continue our no incidents and a lot of practice time available to the 34 drivers. We will bump one car here coming up on Sunday.
That's always kind of an exciting. I like bump day. Somebody's going to get in and somebody's going to have heartbreak.
I think it's outstanding. James Hinchcliffe knows it well. Honestly, we could have gone a lot longer with him on that aspect to it. So he has seen a whole lot over there at IMS. Kylan, can you dial up a little Jiffy Lube music here as we hit our Jiffy Lube stat of the day? The Warriors bow out in the playoffs. James Boyd, they started 38-year-old Steph Curry, 35-year-old Jimmy Butler, 35-year-old Draymond Green. Any idea the last team to start 3 35-year-olds or older in a playoff game?
Do you know, James?
I'm going to go the Bulls.
Some local ties to this.
I was going 98 Bulls.
Interesting. I was even going to go earlier than that.
Some wild characters in this group as well. Some great dunkers and some bad dunkers.
Oh, wow. Now I'm completely thrown off.
Anything?
You got me now.
I was going to say,
I don't know if those clues helped me or hurt me there. What do you have?
The Memphis Grizzlies with the trio. Zach Randolph was 3 months shy of his 35th birthday. I'm not sure if Zach Randolph could dunk. But the three players, how about Matt Barnes? How about Vince Carter? And how about the Birdman? Chris Anderson.
That's a good one. Scotty.
That's terrific.
Shouts out to you, man.
Scotty, the 2016 Grizzlies right there.
The man never disappoints.
And you know what? We talked about the T-Wolves a little bit earlier. Speaking of 35-plus-year-olds, how about Mike Conley still doing it? You know, that would be obviously here. You know, I think everyone's certainly all in on the Pacers, but Mike Conley got a ring, a hell of a career. That would be cool to see as well.
So much great basketball comes out of here all the time. Always fun to hear about that. Great job on Scott there. Kylan, we had a winner for Carb Day just a moment ago, so that was good, right? Who'd we have?
Yeah, congrats to Aaron.
All right, Aaron, good job. You know what? I'm feeling generous today.
Aaron, I'll see you out there. Oh, yeah.
On Carburetor Day.
Yes.
Carb Day.
Yes, Carburetor Day. I'm learning.
There will be a lot of carbs consumed, believe me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
My hand is raised.
Also, I've got a couple of tickets for the Indy 11 right now. The women Indy 11 versus Lexington SC. That's tomorrow, Friday, up at Grand Park, correct, Kylan?
Yeah, that's their home opener of the season. Let's go.
All right. I would think that there are a lot of young women that would love to go see. And probably some young men, too, that would love to go see some Indy 11 women up there at Grand Park. So we've got that going on. A lot happening here.
Let's not bury the lead. Kylan, I believe you have got a little bit of a presence.
Yes.
Do you not?
I'm trying to stay humble in the presence of James.
That.
Not on
humble
this show.
stuff. No,
I was more
Not
nervous
here.
about was it supposed to be public or not as soon as I said it out loud.
Well,
Because I was waiting for her to
Yeah.
go in, but I'm glad you called her out on it.
It'll be my first time doing it, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be the PA announcer for the Indy 11 women. Yeah.
Let's go.
My
Go to the
goat.
game, wait to hear me. Yeah.
I love it. Congrats on that.
Yeah, all that being
awesome.
humble stuff.
Appreciate ya.
Life lesson for those listening: being humble is for losers. Okay, that's the only thing. You know, we never asked MJ to be humble. We never asked Reggie Miller when he was winning and taking the team to the finals to be humble. Talk your stuff, Kyle.
Be John Halliburton. Is that the moral of the story?
You know, maybe not John Halliburton. There's
You gotta draw the line
there's
somewhere.
a bridge before them. But
Okay, got it.
you know, I did see Tyrese on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and he was saying all the teammates were telling him, you know, free Pops. So we'll see if Pops gets free for the
Pops.
conference finals.
I'm just curious, does Pops get a seat like up in the luxury suite, though, away from the court when that happens?
I mean, Tyrese was kind of floating the idea of, you know, would it be like a WWE entrance? He breaks the glass and he shows up, but either way.
You know what I've said. Repel in with Boomer.
Yes, I'll make sure to relay that message to Tyrese next time I see him.
I'm all in on that. So, Kylan, have fun. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, anytime with the Indy 11, it's a great time.
And you're going to be back with us tomorrow morning, right? You're going to
Yes.
come back?
Yep.
I'm
Back
always
for
worried that
another
you won't
Friday.
come back, but you did come back, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And hey, Mark has some more days in June.
Yeah,
Mark
I mean,
has
you know,
days
He's
all
already
the
got
time.
him.
I don't know how Mark works it, but he's got like 148
Nah, he
days
rigged the
off.
system, man.
Yeah,
you know, he hacked the system and got more PTO days. You all should try that.
James is over here learning, like taking notes,
yeah,
right?
you know, I can use a couple days.
We, of course, are going to have another edition of Trackside and Beyond the Bricks coming up later on tonight. Looking forward to that as you start to get, I can tell you're ready to go for cars on the track today, Kevin Bowen.
Yeah, it's been a fun first 2 days there, so looking forward to it. Again, things will continue to ramp up. They'll get a little boost action coming up tomorrow, and
All right.
we'll set the field 13 to 30 on Saturday, and bump one, and first 4 rows coming up on Sunday.
All right, we got to go. We'll talk to you soon right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.